Afternoon to all our viewers. Good afternoon from Atlanta. Another Sunday with 40 people by the people. We want to thank our sponsors, of course. Would like to thank Canny Spice and Global Properties and Wall International for sponsoring this program every Sunday. Kebba Foon, happy Easter Sunday.
Thank you, Father Mos.
Naka affaire yi nag bro.
Alhamdulillah, Santa Yalla.
How are things in Dallas?
Great. Things are great.
So to our viewers, I have to bring in some help here tonight. And actually, Pasamba is out of pocket, and Sarian is heading to Mecca for the Umrah. So wana ko ne ko mu ñaanal ñu Yalla indi jàmm ci sub-region bi, indi jàmm ci suñu réew mi. So you know what, we're not gonna cancel this program because we have tremendous amount of what I would say respect for our viewers. ñoo xam ne they have basically they're always ready for this program on Sunday. So whenever we duñ ko cancel, let's drag some of these guys, and then we can, especially after what we've just witnessed in Senegal, we believe me, maybe we need to come and do some analysis, even if it's about an hour or two. So I have Kebba Foon from Dallas, Karamba from Miami, not Miami, well, somewhere in Florida. And then we will be joined by Saul Badjie too as well, Demba Balde. So I went out there and let me drag people this Sunday. And we're looking forward to hearing from Banka as well, from the Gambia. Keba, numu deme nak bro. Keba, can you hear me?
Oh, sorry, Mos. Man, dama mute on affaire.
Oh, dama mute. Okay.
Yeah, dama mute. Yeah.
Brother Karamba, how are things?
Alhamdulillah, Haji Musa, I'm doing very good. And I'm happy to be with you and our old friend Keba here. And also, yes, and also your audience.
Long time.
I know.
Karamba.
I know, Keba. Good to see you again.
Good to see you. Good to see you.
Thank you for the invite, Musa. And I really want to express my profound gratitude to you and your co-host, because you do a good public service here. Right. You say it like it is, and we are all do the better for it, inshallah.
Absolutely. Always, you're welcome. You're welcome, Karamba. You know, every now and then, especially was it a couple of days ago, and I heard you saying that you are a noble Senegalese. Like when me tell me, I'm like, this sweet,
oh.
Senegalese.
I thought I was gonna run a stick by you at the opening. Manela bon Alhaji Musa. Je lay remercier ni ma invité ci sa programme bi fi sa émission bi.
Ci plateau bi.
Parce que maa ngi xalaat pour gàddaay dem Sénégal boori jam ñaajo quoi. il faut ma fekke projet bi.
ñu poursuivre projet bi.
Oui. maa ngi lambatu sax ndax dinaa fa mën a am seyit and ma wut benn maremba benn abs foofu quoi.
Exactement. Kañ moom xam nga man kiñ ma tuddee.
Yeah.
Actually, my father's brother is Senegalese. Ngi dëkk Gueule Tapée. So man, growing up, my mom used to call me Musa Ndakar. So I've always been boobu lañ ma daan dakkantale, you know. Yeah. So I don't think it will be very difficult for me to make that transition and embrace my Senegalese roots. You know, how that works. Brother Saul,
Wow, penala.
Tey daal ma ne xarama drak la léegi yaa ngi nekk on the margins di ñu sànni xeer ma ne bii nag I'm gonna drag you to the plateau. You know?
Wow, well, it's a pleasure to join you.
Yes.
My mangi echo de how malita my echo. Maybe it's coming from me.
Yeah, I was scratching. I don't know whether it's from my end.
Yeah. So, but it's good now. I can now. It's much better. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. We can hear you
Yep.
loud
So
and
the
clear.
scratchiness and everything is gone. Well, it's a pleasure to always join you guys, Musa. Kerok, begin to interview me. You were saying something along the lines. If it's not 10 years, it's close to it. I think it's about nine years now because I mean, for the people, by the people. Yeah, I began to initiate Averti. I think it was somewhere around. I started my show that I was doing on education in 2016 on January the 6th.
Right.
You guys were on 2 years before Time
Mhm.
Bogunon, I believe. So you,
Mhm.
it must be close to 10 years now, Yakadane.
Yeah,
So it's
initially, Banker was the one that kind of launched it. You
yes,
know, in after when he went to prison, that's when we
correct.
came and kind of took it over for him. Then go tell him, you know.
You're right. You're right. I remember that. Yes,
And the
they
whole
got it.
thing was supposed to be very temporal. I mean, I'm like, oh my God, how can I Lulu Bankareka Kumun to be honest? I mean, on this plateau for like 2, 3 hours, 4 hours. There's no way I can do that. But you know how that goes.
Yes,
Before
absolutely.
you know it, we've all have become addicted to the program as well. And then of course, we know a lot of people will definitely tune in, especially in Europe and in the US. It's like they just want to tune in and talk about our Gambian issues. So we seriously believe that it is important to maintain it. And because dialogue and having a conversation is important, rather than you want to just speak to your, all that does is division. But when we all come and put all the chips on the table and talk about it, is always important. But anyway,
Yeah.
obviously, we have witnessing something has happened in Senegal for the past 3 years. That country found itself in what I would call political turbulence. I mean, really, there was manifestation, protest, people were getting killed, public property was getting destroyed, opposition leaders were getting arrested, taken to jail. And everybody was beginning to believe, Senegal being the only country that one could at least say the coup d'etat has never happened. There was at least a semblance of democracy. Something was happening. The country was at a cliff, but somehow their institutions was able to withstood it, and they came out of it. And last week, the incumbent was defeated. We have a change of government by the opposition, winning also on the first round, in the first round, not the second round. Everybody was thinking that there's going to be a deuxième tour, like they would like to call it. It never happened. Something happened. Brother Karamba, what happened in Senegal?
Well, thank you, Musa. What happened in Senegal is historic, is titanic, and it is the first time, as far as I can remember, on the continent of Africa, and pretty much in most parts of the world, where an insurgent group within the span of less than 10 years is able to take on an entrenched establishment. And in Senegal, we have to understand what constitutes the establishment there. Is the establishment is not only one class of people. The establishment in Senegal, from the little that I know of that country, there is the political establishment, and then it extends also to their allies in the private sector who are also connected to the same political establishment of both parties. And then also there is the religious class, the people that run the the religious hierarchy, not the regular Muslims in Senegal. That is a class of themselves who are also part of the establishment. So essentially, what Pastev undertook to do was to take on that entire establishment, offer an alternative vision to the Senegalese people, to tell them for 60 years things have not gone the right way. And the reason it has not gone the right way is that the system itself is a problem. It is not delivering. And they did not only define the opposition, they also conceived and then very thoroughly and methodically explained an alternative to the system. And that is not an easy thing to do in a society where millions of people are under the grasp and influence of a sort of an establishment and a minority that kind of just exercise outsized influence over people. So to get around that, they had to be very, 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 very determined. They also had to be very, very, very clear about the alternative they are doing. They are offering the Senegalese people. And then they also had to define accurately what constitutes the establishment. Who are they? And what are they doing to you, the ordinary Senegalese? And I think that was what they had from the very beginning. And it took them quite a bit of time to get the messaging just right, because you have to make the messaging to where it's relatable to the average Senegalese, not only the guy who is plugged into the system in Dakar, but then the guy who is outside, who is looking at himself and then saying, well, I can't make a life here anymore. I got to go into the sea. I got to do this. Or I have to come to Dakar and then live in a small place and that sort of thing. So it was a combination of having a vision and then also having a leader who understood how to plan and then how to execute, and then also how to constitute a team to help him further, build up on the plan. Because you have to remember, it's not only the political end, the brain trust behind Pastor, it's a very strong one too. So all in all, this is a historic thing. That to take on an establishment is not easy in a continent where millions of people can be swayed by a few individuals who are very crafty, who know how to amass power and exercise it, to get around those people and then beat them. I think people will be learning the lessons here for many, many, many years in terms of how did they plan this thing and how did they execute it. And then the establishment obviously pushed back big time. But they were able to surmount all of that, and that is not a mean feat, Musa. It is a very, very, very difficult. And then they were prepared to pay the price. Now, a lot of times in African politics, most people don't succeed because they are not willing to pay the price. You have to be willing to pay the price in blood, in liberty, and then in resources to take on an entrenched establishment, because if you don't do it, they are going to find a way to survive. So they are able to do that, and I think it's a miracle. And they have resonated with the Senegalese people in a way. I think this is almost like the toothpaste is out of the box. You cannot put it back in there. I think Senegalese society is up for fundamental change.
Wow, no doubt. Kebba, what happened in Senegal? What have we just witnessed? A country that was almost on the cliff, anarchy, constitutional crisis. They were able to come out of it. Elections were organized and change happened in Senegal. What have we just witnessed, Kebba? Unbelievable.
Well, we just witnessed a change of system. Just like Karamba said, the establishment was an entrenched system in Senegal. And we just witnessed a change of system. The system was entrenched, and it's been entrenched since after independence. And the Sonko and Jomai team present to the Senegalese people an alternative and said that, look, this is the system that we ought to get. And they present that system, alternative system, to the Senegalese, and the Senegalese bought into it. They changed the whole political landscape. And thanks to the civic education of the Senegalese, Remember that Senegal is one of the only country in West Africa that have never been through a coup.
Right.
And the reason for that was partly having strong institutions, like they demonstrated throughout this political process that just happened. And also a very thorough civic education.
Right.
I remember going to Senegal years back, and I was in a taxi and I was talking to this taxi driver, and he was explaining the political situation, the political system to me. He thoroughly understands the whole political process. And I was so impressed. I'm like, wow. Even the layman, the taxi drivers, the ordinary people in the street, they can explain to you the political process. And they thoroughly understand the political process and what it entails. That is due to some serious civic education. So combining all those factors,
right,
the past have come up with a system, with an ideology. They come up with an ideology, they come up with an idea. And they present this idea to the Senegalese people, and the Senegalese people bought the idea. And it is this idea that wins the election, that won the election in Senegal. It was not Sonko or Diomaye. It was the new idea, the new system that they presented to the Senegalese people. So this tells me that the system of big man, the personality politics that dominated Africa is about to erode and is about to go away.
Yeah.
The main reason why PASTEF is successful, when Macky Sall was concentrating on Sonko,
right,
because they already set up a system, it was very easy to come up with the slogan and then choose a different flag bearer
candidate
in the name of Diomaye, and then the idea continues and Diomaye win the election. So that tells you that when an idea is presented and the voters buy into that idea, it doesn't matter who is the flag bearer. The system will win the election.
Wow. So Kebba is saying, Saul, that is a system change and not this personality cult. But we also witness that there is a Sonko. There is a person behind the system. What say you? What have we witnessed, Saul? Is it more a combination of personality and system and messaging? Or is it all about personality? What have we witnessed?
Well, to begin with, Musa, I didn't say hello to Kebba and Karamba, but hello, guys. I think the personality you just mentioned, Musa, was taken up as a result of the accusations that were laid on the person of Sonko in the past 5-6 years. So that had a different dynamic in terms of whether the personality of the person of Sonko was being trusted to become the leader. I say this because in 2022, when I went to Gambia, I visited with my friend who was a candidate, although they removed him in the list of those who were potential runners for the election. So I believed he and I had this feeling that maybe whatever these accusations are, there might have been some truth to it. So the personality was taken up. That's number one. I think what happened, Musa, was planning, then the sensitization that Kebba Foon was talking about and Karamba. But there were certain things that this PASTEF overcame in this campaign and to the election. But the planning, I believe, was the most circumstantial accomplishment. When he realized, I believe, I don't know what's in his head, but we can tell looking at the way they campaigned, how he set up himself, knowing that the system which we're talking about was about to really suffocate him, and they intended to do it. This young man could have been killed. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, the accusations came, but they started to fall flat. People didn't seem to believe it. And you know, Maki is a very smart guy, Musa.
Mm-hmm.
Macky Sall has been in government for how many years? 24, I believe, maybe longer than that.
Serve in
So
different
he,
categories. Yes, absolutely.
correct, correct.
Mm-hmm.
And Senegal's economy was headed in a direction up until 6, 7 years ago, in the area of some experts that it was becoming a middle class economy. So
Mm-hmm.
you can tell that there was a lot of sensitization in terms of informing the people from their end, Macky Sall trying to make sure that he portrays this young man as a dangerous, irresponsible young man. They were succeeding to some extent, but the planning of these young men and the Pasteur group was one of the most pivotal things. I mentioned this, Musa, for the very first time, I believe. Correct me, guys, if I'm wrong. That these elections were conducted and they won without the influence or having to seek some guidance and support from the Murit, the Tuba folks. Am I right
Mm-hmm.
or wrong, Musa? They tried
Because
to avoid them. Yeah, they
mhm,
tried to avoid them as much as possible, even though they all know that this is about country. Doesn't mean we have to. But this was a planned election that actually ended up being so successful, where you had, I believe, 100,000 youth or people voted for Pasteur in the Tuba region, Musa. And we had
mhm,
some of these guys, the old Murids and the Marabout's sons who were saying, you're not going to win here because you didn't come visit us. But they have done this successfully, Musa, as a
right.
result of the youth folk when I visited in 2022 and my buddy and I went to the market, I mean, he was against Sonko, but in the last few weeks, he decided, okay, because I'm not going to be a candidate, so I'm going to have to choose a political party I want to align with. And he aligned with Positive.
Right.
But long story short, he and I would go to the market to look for stuff, and he would debate with this young man, making the case that this guy, the accusations may have some truth to it, up until they all fell flat. So the planning and the legal team, Musa, we have to
Mhm,
give them credit. They had a legal team of folks who were doing this pro bono to
right.
defend some. And that is one of the things that they used to sell to the international community, that the accusations on this young man don't have any merit. And even if the one with the young lady was to be thrown away, which they did, some of the courts did throw it away. The one issue that came up that didn't have any further was the issue of this minister accusing him that he has actually laid a false accusation on him.
Yeah,
And
Mamba, yeah,
so Mamba Nyang,
correct.
so we disqualify him. But
Hmm.
then you disqualify the young man, but then you arrest him and put him in jail, and
Correct.
arrest some of these folks and put him in jail. Then you, what he did, this is significant, Musa.
Hmm.
Macky Sall really dissolved the Pasteur party. With
Right.
what powers he had, I don't know. But he also put this young man in jail. So these are some of the things that actually pivoted the Pasteur political party to begin to have empathy from the older folks who were on the sidelines because of the accusations, who began to realize that this has to do with this young man's potential. It
Hmm.
has nothing to do with the criminal accusations because he could have been allowed to run. But then you put him in jail, and all of these pictures and videos were spiraling on social media about the way the police were handling themselves.
Correct.
All of these things culminated in the support for Pastef because the Senegalese people finally began to believe that, okay, this has to do with Macky Sall's intent. Don't forget, he wanted to run for a third term, but Pastef and everybody stood and said, we're not going to allow you. So, in a nutshell, Musa,
Hmm.
mistakes were made by Macky.
Right.
I was a good supporter of Macky Sall, but once I realized this young man was being accused of things that he probably didn't do, and if he did something along the lines of accusing Mamba Nyang, you couldn't possibly remove him from participating in the election just because somebody else accused them of defaming their credibility or their name. So
Mhm.
these are the things that happen, Musa. So
Mhm.
the candidate being in jail, releasing this candidate and his co-partner 10
Correct.
days before the election, because the planning again was a smart move of saying, if not me, then I have other options. I don't know
Right.
how he came up with this, but Musa, take away before I hand it over to you. There are
Right.
parallels between the way the Pasteur group handled themselves,
Mhm.
participated, and ended up winning this election, and the
Mhm.
parallels of what we fought for 22 years. I see some things that we can always pick from what they did, and some things that we know for sure either it was by intention or unintentional. But I can see some parallels between the way they struggled and the way we struggled with Yaya Jammeh.
Absolutely, 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 Saul. And I'm going to bring in Karamba because Karamba, I've been hearing, especially after the elections, the elections of Pasteur, Gambians have been kind of saying we should take cues from Senegal. And I'm like, wait a minute. I believe what we've done in 2016 is even much bigger than what we've witnessed in Senegal. We had an entrenched dictator for the past 22 years, killing and sending Gambians abroad, creating fear. But as Gambians, we were able, for the first time within Africa, I could say, to actually remove a dictator without going through violence or anything of that sort. For me, that speaks volumes. So I remember every Sunday we come on this show with Basamba, we've always argued about Aki the dictator, where the Senegalese under a dictatorship. And my position has always been, look, this guy will abuse power. I really like Maki because of what I saw in Senegal. And I kept saying that. Anytime, maybe I flew into Senegal, I mean, it's like I'm in Atlanta. The infrastructure was unbelievable. Like you kind of alluded to, there was this potential of creation of a middle class. Senegal was on the move. A country that has a potential, the foundation was there. It's just a question of taking it to the next level. But somehow, the Senegalese people were not happy. I guess it's going to come down to the, what they call it again, bread and butter issues, poverty. But when you go to any of these villages in Senegal, they have access to water, access to electricity. But still, they were able to listen and say, you know what, there is an other way. So, Karamba, can you come in and help us out to understand that with everything that Maki did, nobody would doubt that the man actually brought development into Senegal. Nobody would doubt that. But still, the Senegalese people decided to vote against Maki and go to a totally different direction. Is it about the message or is it about Senegalese people tired of the same old, same old? How do you really see it, Karamba?
I think it's a combination of different factors. Now, you are correct that over the years, on the infrastructure side, having the train, the airport, the real estate market changing, all of that materially on the surface looks like development, and it's actually development, because something that was not there, if it's built, then it is there, and then it was built under his watch, so he
Mhm.
gets some credit for that. But infrastructure or other material things at the surface, that does not lift the majority of people. And also, there is a very, 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 very big gap between those who are plugged into the system,
Correct.
and then in that category also you have the insanely corrupt ones who use the instruments of government, the institutions of government, to enrich themselves. And when they enrich themselves, they are able to buy people who will do the praise singing, people who will be their networks to the marabouts, and people who, and then they will spread the stolen, ill-gotten wealth within a clique of people who just think that they can feed the masses just empty rhetoric. If there is a high-speed rail from Dakar to Jamñajo, and you can't buy the ticket, or you don't have any work, and then there's no prospects for you in whatever small town or village that you are from, you are going to see the development as something where it's basically for others, because there'll be a sense of alienation. And then also the sense of corruption, I think, had widened in the minds of people, because people underestimate just how revolting corruption is to an ordinary person, especially the person who feels like he's been cheated out of every opportunity. He can't get a good education. He can't find a way out, because remember, for the previous 30 years, the valve for all of us poor countries on that part of the continent is, you can find your way and then go somewhere else. And that going somewhere else is increasingly perilous and difficult. And then the places we all were heading to 30, 25 years ago, they don't want us to come back there anymore. So it's building up a pressure cooker within the people that are saying, well, I am a young man here. I don't have any prospects. It's all fine and dandy that you have 4-lane highways and expensive apartments and all of that. I'm not getting any of that. So there was what looked like development.
Karamba, you there? Or we're losing him? Kebba, I mean, you can take it from, Karamba, because without a doubt.
But
okay, Karamba, you're back. We kind of lost you there for a minute.
Yeah, sorry about that. But what I'm saying is that there are various factors. So what looked like prosperity and development, sure, but it was one-sided and it was limited to the people that were plugged into the system. Yeah, I mean, if we are an ally of APR, and then you are close to the South or the people that handle this, and it was the same there. It was just Wad and his crew. So what the PASTEF people were able to latch onto is the sense of broad-based grievance among the majority, who feel like an elite have dealt them out of natural success, their natural wealth, especially with the promise of oil revenues and natural gas and all the minerals. They are saying all of this milliard coming in, we are seeing people, living high on the hog, and we ain't gotten anything. So that sense of grievance is always a very strong motivator for people to say, look, these people are only out for themselves. You understand? And then talking about the institutions, and I know all of you gave credit to the institutions that ultimately prevented the power grab that Maki was doing. But the institutions, in my view, succeeded only to a certain extent. Because remember, Maki and his people, they were able to manipulate aspects of the judiciary, to go after people and then do, because incumbents and entrenched bureaucracies, they are always able to go after people using the institutions of state. Now, I'm not saying all of the institutions failed, but some of them failed at a crucial time because they did malicious prosecutions, they removed people, and the parliament, forget it. They were just ramming anything that Maki wanted. Correct. And then they were not looking at stabilizing the democracy and defending it, because every good leader will be tested not on the good times. When there is a challenge and then you are able to stand up and say, I am not going to do this because it's not good for the country and it's not good for the overall well-being of our democracy. His team didn't do that. If it was only left to the Senegalese parliament, for example, they will pull up anything, including declaring a state of emergency, suspending the elections and all of that. And then aspects of the judiciary also got contaminated, because part of the strategy of going after PASTEF is malicious prosecutions, disbanding them, as Saul alluded to, and then using the instruments of government, and then also using the people that are plugged into the system, including certain members of the Marabout class. You notice that some of them, they maintain a posture of either outright support for the system or ambiguity that allowed them plausible deniability, because they are also about maintaining control over the people that are underneath them. And then if you are going to have an internal rebellion brewing against an elite system that you are plugged into, if you are a smart Marabout, you're going to try to play your cards close to your chest, or to kind of stay above it, or to maneuver, to be whispering behind the thing. And this is also a potential realignment of how they also control the people that are part of their tariqas and that sort of thing, because these are the constituent members of the Senegalese society. And even though some of them, like Baranjai and all of that, who are plugged into the Murid system, were openly PASTEF, and then they are very influential. Yes, that is a very strong signal to them that change is coming for them too. Because part of what Pastef is saying is that the relationship between the state and the religious establishment is going to be institutionalized, for whatever that means. So you can expect that, they will probably try to tell the people, look, you represent everybody. So, the era of kind of taking sides and using the control you have over your followers to try to steer politics. Yeah, so that's probably another thing. So it's a combination of different factors. It's not just one thing. Some of the institutions were able to validate the principle that democracy needed defending. They did that. Yeah. So
no doubt, Karamba, when it mattered, the institutions were able to say, look, the only way our democracy can be salvaged. I don't know why, whenever I'm talking, it is scratchy. I'm not sure whether it's from my end, most likely. I don't know why it's doing that.
But I can hear you clearly, though.
Yeah. So when it matters,
do you have another gadget open?
No.
Do you have another gadget?
No, I cannot even turn off my laptop.
Okay.
So I'm not sure. Maybe but Kebba, obviously also what we have witnessed was an election that people were saying, well, yes, Pastef were able to win the hearts and minds of the Senegalese people, but clearly the government did not put up a good fight. Macky basically helped Pastef to be elected to some extent. You're talking about banning of Pastef. You're talking about personalizing it, going after Ousmane Sonko. Let's say they didn't do any of that. And Macky was able from day one get away from this politics of deuxième mandat, troisième mandat, and just focus on having a succession from APR, give the government and kind of be behind this Amadou Ba, give him the resources, and make sure that APR, because you have to understand, after Amadou Ba was selected, you had some other people from the party that decided to throw their hand in the ring. Aliou Gunjai was one of them, the guy called John and Mamboy Chao. So in other words, Pastef was faced with a government that was fragmented, a status quo that was fragmented, a party that was in disarray. And then we also, Macky was much on the sidelines, not getting involved. Is that a factor? Can you imagine if that was not the case? That Macky went out there in the rural areas, in Foutas, in Kaffrine, in southern Senegal, and campaigned for Amadou Ba. And all those other guys that actually left and threw their hand in the ring, they were all together. What would that have done to this election? Do you think that also has something to do with it, and not necessarily just all Ousmane Sonko and the messaging? Kebba?
I think it's a combination of both, Musa. I think that, yes, you are right. Macky was concentrating on trying to decapitate Pastef and get rid of Pastef. Because, I mean, if you look at it, that is Macky's modus operandi. That's the way he operates.
That's his MO, yeah.
Yes, that's his MO. Sonko was not the first politician that Macky put aside. He imprisoned Karim Wada.
Khalifa Saleh.
And he imprisoned Khalifa Saleh, and he go after the opposition vigorously, and anybody that have the potential to take him on, he will go ahead and make sure that that personality is taken out of the way. Any opposition personality that a potential that is coming up, Macky will make sure that he will put you down. And that's where Pastef came with a different approach, and the approach of bringing an idea, bringing this system change to the Senegalese people and present it to the Senegalese people. Macky was concentrating on Sonko, just like he did with Karim Wada and Khalifa Saleh. So he concentrate on the personality, because that's our African way. We have big man mentality from independence. We pop up personalities and everything runs around that personality. So the biggest mistake Maki made was concentrating on that personality, which is Sonko, instead of looking at the idea, what these people are talking about. So Pastef and they brought about a system change. They bring about a big shift in the political environment in Senegal. So instead of now concentrating on personalities, it's all about ideas, system and ideas. So the way they play the game by pushing Sonko in the forefront, and Maki concentrated on Sonko, not knowing that there are maybe hundreds of Sonko behind Sonko. And it was an easy thing to just come up and say, okay, now you have imprisoned Sonko, you have even basically taken Sonko out of the race. And he never get the imagination that, well, even if I take Sonko out of the race, there are hundreds of Sonko behind Sonko that can equally step in and do exactly what Sonko intended to do.
So,
wow.
Go ahead. Sorry, Kebba. Go ahead.
Which we all witness. Yeah, that's what all of us witness. And then that's why it was easy to come up with Jomai Moi Sonko, Sonko Moi Jomai. Because it's the same idea.
But doesn't that make it, they fully understood the personality of Sonko, and Sonko understood it very well, that you can't just drag another candidate without linking him with Sonko. That is why the Jumai and Sonko was very deliberate. They know exactly what they were doing, because you have to understand, Jumai in the legislative elections, do you guys know that he actually contested Tim Joge Momsi Bopam, and the guy did not even win. He woefully lost. So here you have, it's like me going to Salem constituency in an election, and I did very badly, and a year or 2 years later, become a presidential candidate and become a national candidate, winning on the first round, almost 54%. What does that tell you?
That's what I said. I mean, Musa, that Jomai or Sonko didn't win the election. It's the idea that won the election. Yes.
Maybe it's Sonko. Don't you think? Maybe, yes, the messaging was there. Because people are telling you, look, if you actually read the project, like they want to say, because that's the word there, project. Everybody want to talk about the project. It's not really anything different. If you really open it, they're talking about access to education, to healthcare. It's not like a total paradigm shift. So there's a lot more to it. If you really dig deep and read the because Project is just the manifesto. I mean, we have some nice manifestos from, you remember the United Democratic Party, Karamba, with the 5-point agenda? I mean, it's there. I mean, don't think for a minute they have manufactured something so different. So, Saul, coming back to you, don't you think Maki really, and APR or Benno Bokayakar, they really made it easy for, because Sonko in the last general election, he won, he came out third, 19% of the vote, behind Idrissa Seck. So something happened. There's no doubt. The Senegalese people embrace Sonko and Pastef, but man fognane tamit. Maki japala na lende. Benno Bokk Yakaar ran a terrible, campaign, if you ask me. Banning of Pastef, sending these people to jail, elevating their statue, all of that. That Ajisar Hubla. You talk about Mamba Inya. People begin to see the Senegalese people. For whatever reason, they're trying to deny us. Maybe there's a lot more to Sonko that we need to embrace. What say you, Saul? Or was it all about messaging and Pastef?
You know, if I agree with you, Musa, by saying that Maki Devlin Dimale, then people are going to look at us and say, okay, what planet are you guys on? because to be honest, Maki did everything he possibly could to put this guy at bay. They
Yeah.
did everything they possibly could. Like Karamba said, he used some of the most critical institutions. He didn't use all the institutions, but he used the institutions of the police force, the law
Mhm.
enforcement. He used the courts, and then he used, don't forget, we used the Conseil Constitutional, which actually denied Sonko the ability to run. So there was a planned and well thought out process by Maki. But I think Musa, somewhere down the line, the
Mhm.
pressure from the international community, the
Yes.
pressure from the international community. And I'm going to take a page here, Musa, put more, for us in the African continent.
Right.
We tend to not give the West a lot of credit. Because more here I want to feel like they not the Kool-Aid, but I mean I have to give them credit. They don't realize, well, somebody must have known this when they created it. But Musa, the fact that we have Facebook, we have WhatsApp, we have all of these social media networks. These are some of the networks that are beginning to help us change the face of Africa, that are
Mhm.
beginning to help us tell our own stories. These are the networks and social media networks that are helping us be able to organize ourselves as we did in 2016. One of the most pivotal things that we were able to use was this network, social media, and all of these ways to communicate. Less Yaya Jammeh would have continued to perpetuate himself because the information would be out there, but they can come and say it's false because we wouldn't be able to have evidence to prove that. So Senegal, to say Maki to some extent, may have helped Pasteur. A little bit of credit, whether he knew it or not, was, I believe, because of the international pressure that allowed him to stay aloof. He completely just kept himself from having to engage so much in the election, which is what you're pointing at. If Maki went to his constituency, the areas where he won the last election, and campaigned vigorously with Amadou Ba, maybe that would have had some impact on the results, but at the same time, him staying away, again, taking a page from what we planned, Musa. These things,
Mhm.
these may not have been intentional, but somehow I see parallels because Yun Sin plan was Adama Barrow to stay in office for 3 years, after which he would stay in the office and let candidates run. Whoever won the election became president. That was
Correct.
our intention. Again,
Right.
I see parallels there where the Makidaf could have intentionally or not, but you have to give him credit. You have to give the devil credit in that aspect of that one area that I see, which is, as it turned out, one of the reasons why his candidate didn't win. Because again, the claim would be, so Fekene yo danga fogne Amadou Ba was your choice and you wanted him to continue the status quo, then why didn't you go out and defend your policies and what you have done, which you were talking about the fact that so much infrastructural development had happened.
Exactly.
He took all of those things that WADA was doing, the great things that WADA was doing in building infrastructure. Musa, 2011, Yodan did them Senegal, many of those of do.
Mhm.
2011, time before WADA Neke, I mean, the power, the electricity was nowhere to be seen, Musa. Water shortages. Every 2, 3 hours, didn't take Kurang. It was
Correct.
impacting the economy. But when I went in 2022, in chairs,
It's
electricity
totally
went out
different
for
ball game.
30 seconds, Musa. No more for I spent
Yes.
like 10 days in Senegal. Nekana for 6 days, Madam Banjul, Newart Nekafa. So these were things that are tangibles that people saw that
Absolutely.
were complete economic growth that was happening. But then
Mhm.
Pastef was able to remind people about the debt. They were able to tell them the amount of money Maki was borrowing. But also they pivot over to the natural resources that were being pillaged at the expense of people getting enriched,
Which
at the expense of
Karamba
the
alluded to corruption.
correct.
Yes.
Yep. So
Mhm.
Karamba talked about development, Musa. Why
Mhm.
development? Dafa am benn sëriñ bu mag bu nekk Sénégal boo xam ne daf dee wax ne this he said this 8 years ago na mun nañoo Africa dañu war a bàyyi seen xel. We can build all the infrastructure we want, but if we don't provide food on the table for the family members, or at least give them the avenues to be able to feed themselves, what is the purpose of all of this infrastructural development? And this is the bread and butter issue that I think took Macky Sall off the rails, and Ahmadouba couldn't campaign to win the hearts and minds of people. On top of the accusations and the persecution of Pasteur and his people. But the young people who are here on the platform are saying what is apparent, Musa, that
Mhm.
Pasteur planned and they made sure that they had. Musa, when you go into your corporate meeting here in the United States, they're saying every time, and this is about development. So plan B ni failure, what's the next option?
Correct.
They did that, and that has paid off because if Sonko was shut down, because Maki has succeeded, look about no, he had shut down other candidates and put them in jail. And this was the plan that if he put Sonko in jail and dissolved the PASTEF, then the path would have been created for Amadou Ba. No matter what, he would have won the election. But Sonko pointed to this guy, which Kebba is saying, this is unheard of, Musa. It is new, but then again, Musa, when Uncle Usainu Dabo was put in jail,
Right.
where did we go to? We selected another candidate, right?
Right.
Through a referendum. They might have done it differently. People were asking Sonko, what is your next option? And
Right.
he had always had these people out in social media and on the platform saying, if Sonko selects another candidate and says, this is my candidate, we're
Correct.
all going to vote for it. And they took that and ran away with it, Musa. And
Mhm.
these are some of the things that actually helped them to
Mhm.
come and win the election. Back to the Marabos, Musa, wa Tuba. Musa. Tuba is a powerful
And,
political, it's a
and that's a
powerhouse.
PDS. That's where PDS is very strong.
Yes,
And that is what.
correct.
So people are saying that maybe if Karim was running, I mean, most likely all those Murids will be voting for Karim. I don't know. I mean, it's 2020 hindsight. It's very easy to say that because
Absolutely.
Pastef did extremely well. I mean,
They
in
did.
Turas. Yes.
They did. But and the jury is still out there. Others will claim that the youth were so sensitized
Mhm.
that there was communication and conversations out there that told them about the future, that their future depends on them participating in the election. To the extent that Amadou Ba and his folks were going out telling the youth, telling people that a good majority of these young men who were going with this passive and campaigning uh, didn't register to vote. That message was out there. I go back to Pap Alinyang, who also rebutted by saying, okay, let's take that as the reason why Amadou Ba would win the election. But how about the families of the 44 young men who were killed? How about the families of the people who have been completely wiped out? People who were killed, some people who had major injuries, now disabled. How about those families? Do we think those parents whose children were out there fending for themselves and trying to bring money home to help them feed themselves, that those families would intentionally say, okay, let's talk about what happened to my children. I'm going to vote for Amruba. These are conversations that were being heard by family members, and you can see what happened. But in a nutshell, Musa, I believe Maki staying away from not engaging in the election, costing the election, number one. But
Mhm.
also more importantly is because the messaging by Pastef was overwhelmingly convincing that not only is this guy persecuting this guy, he has a motive because they wanted to maintain the status quo. And this status quo is what is going to eventually start to remove some of these presidents who want to self-perpetuate.
No, Saul, you're right on the money. When Maki actually made it easy for Pastef to win, it's not about Maki wanting Pastef to win, because obviously all along, whether it was the Trust Manda, whether it was Maki did not want Pastef to win at all. But the way they handled it, like Beno Bokayaka, Maki wasn't able to bring them together. If that were to happen, now campaigning for Amadou Ba is one thing, but by just keeping, show me any political party that is fragmented, and I will show you a party that will lose an election. There's absolutely no doubt about that. Were they cohesive as a party? Were they out there countering, the messaging of Pasteur? And Karamba, coming back to this project that we've all been hearing, this project. I mean, like I was just alluding to, I've seen a lot of nice manifestos, whether it's from the United Democratic Party, whether it's from DOI. You remember we had our, was it Khalifa Saleh had a 2011 agenda. I mean, I've seen some very powerful agendas in the Gambia. So the project wasn't anything special as far as I'm concerned. I don't know whether you had an opportunity to see it or at least hear about it. What makes it so different?
No.
Karamba.
Good question, Musa. I just wanted to take a moment to just address one issue both you and Kebba raised. I know you had tried to push back on the idea that, on the one hand, Kebba was saying that the success is on the strength of the project and the messaging, and that it had nothing or very little to do with personality. And then your point, which is also valid, was that, Sonko is kind of central to this whole thing, his personality. And I think both of you are right to some extent. And then my view would be that it's the confluence of the two. Now, Sonko is the public face of the vision, and then he's also the battlefield commander for it. The general officer does not go into all aspects of the battlefield detail. If he has good colonels and majors and sergeants at the fighting level, they can still execute. And then Kebba is also right in the fact that because of the strength of the project and the messaging, it was very easy to do substitution. You understand? But there is also a very valid reason why you had to say Sonko Moi Jomai.
Exactly.
Because Usman Sonko is the most powerful politician in Senegal today.
Yes.
And I think part of the strength of PASTEF is because they know him better. Dealing with him in close proximity, and then they understand what he brings to the table. And part of his power is just the humility that he brings, along with the charisma that he has and the tremendous persuasive powers that he has. So I think both of you are right. And then it's probably the confluence of the two. The strength of the message, and because the message is strong, and it is very clearly communicated, and is also relatable to the average person. Because when you are dealing with, because information within voters is not at the same level, and sometimes we make that mistake. Correct. We view our Gambian politics within the prism of our understanding. Musa Jeng, as you are basically a suburban Atlanta guy because you've stayed here for a very long time. Your perspective cannot be with Hamad Bunga Hamde Momla grew up in Demfai, who's never left CRR. No, it's not the same. So sometimes we do that projection, and then it leads to strategic failure because we are seeing things from our own prism. Correct. As opposed to the prism of what the positive people did was to match a very charismatic and somebody who understands planning and execution, and then the public phase of it, and then have him earn credibility among themselves and the Senegalese people, and then they coupled it with good team spirit. And so you could substitute, if it was not Jomai, because I think they had 3 or 4 people.
Oh, they had 3 or 4 lined up.
Exactly, that they have put in there. So substitution was easy on the strength of the message, what Kebba is saying. That, and he is right, generally, that personality politics is a problem in our continent. It is. And that will make me pivot back to why you are saying Make did not campaign for Chudemon Kafrin or Futa or anything like that. Isn't that in personality politics, and because he is somebody who was on his way out, he does not have deliverable influence. Correct. Because a lot of the people they are right in for the gravy train. They say this man is out. So munna them Kafrin, munna them food and all of that. But I doubt it would have been a game changer because they have been outmaneuvered by these past people. You understand? And then also their candidate was also not good. Because their candidate, Amud Ben Charisma,
low energy.
He's a product of the system. Yes. He has internal opposition from within his own camp.
From within, from affairs itself.
So the guy is Make to put his neck out there, and then he would have been a much more humiliating defeat because he would have been facing angry people who are saying like, look, you didn't play clean. You wanted to get the 3rd term anyway, and then people are forgetting. It is these past people who effectively blocked this 3rd term appeal with their lives and their blood. Because the first plan was a 3rd term. He would have been able to maneuver the system to do that. So I think that was what I wanted to address. Now, what was your question again? I forgot.
Oh, I did forget myself because you've taken me to a totally different.
Yeah, you were saying okay, and then the same thing you are talking about. I think more importantly, we need to look at what it means.
Oh, no. Yeah. Now I remember. I
Yeah.
was talking about, okay, even though you kind of alluded to it, talking about the message itself and the relatability of the message.
Yeah.
So I'm saying there isn't anything that is so different. I mean, if you really look at the messaging or the process, like the Senegalese would want to call it, that is so different from, let's say, the Agenda 2011 that Khalifa had, or the 5-point agenda from UDP. I mean,
Yeah.
dealing with issues, it's nothing absolutely different. But
Yeah.
somehow they were able to sell it to the Senegalese people, when in our case, I mean, it's never about the message. There's always that difficulty.
Yes,
What
and that comes back to the difference in the nature of voters.
Mm-hmm.
You understand? In Gambia, it is much easier to appeal to people's dark sides than to their hopes.
Correct.
Yeah, if you come in, I remember SFL going to Nyamina, and then I know if they had voted for SFL, Nyamina has always voted for the government.
Mm-hmm.
You know, remember that's where Sambaba is from, the minority.
Yes.
He's been there 20-something years. He's never done a damn thing for them.
A damn thing.
But he knows.
They always complain about that.
Yes, because he's adept at what is wrong with our politics, which is divide the people and then appeal to their dark sides.
Mm-hmm.
He's always been able to slide along with a 200 or 300 vote margin. That's all it is. And then he knows it works. Because I will care about you. I will make sure that you are farmers, agriculture, I'll put resources, I'll bring competent people, you'll get water, you'll get roads and all of that. That is what is good for them. Mm-hmm. But they cannot relate to SFR. Mm-hmm. He doesn't speak their language. They've never seen him. And then somebody is going to come and tell them, you know, I'm your buddy. And then here is a sujer, and then you're not going to see him for 5 years. They'll vote for that person. So it is the nature of the voters. It's not the same thing. The people in Wunli, where Syria is currently here receiving an award, which he deserves, and we congratulate him for it.
Yes.
For 25 years, he ran the place well. He was sharing his salary with them. He gave them effective representation. Yes. But then they exchanged him for somebody who doesn't know his left from his right.
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, for somebody who, and then they are supposed to be among the most politically aware constituency, because DOI is about teaching people on what representation means and then sacrificing. Yes. Why, at the end of the day, some guy who can ride on the NPP gravy train, the people forgot all of that. And they sent a good man home, and then they have an empty Haftan there now. Who's going to do nothing for them, will collect all the paycheck for 5 years and wouldn't represent them well. So there is a difference between, in Senegal, you can appeal to people's hopes. While in Gambia, to win, you have to appeal to people's dark sides. You have to appeal to their dark tribal instincts, their dark, personal instincts. You know, this Musa Jeng, you can't trust him. He's not a good man. And then he doesn't know a damn thing about you. Why very easy. Escalate. And then somebody will vote against their own interests just because they want to validate that dark side. And that is the problem we have. People don't vote on agendas or ideas. If they did, then people with ideas who say, I am, the DOI people, if you put them in office, if there is a meeting in Dakar, they will get in the Gele Gele. They're not going to do a private jet. No. But they're not going to vote for them because people don't vote on ideas. But
Karamba, though, because when you talk about Senegalese and Gambians, we are basically the same people, same culture, same language, you name it. Yeah. Why are they able to, at least the majority of their voters, is it the education? Is it the exposure? Is it about something Frenchy?
No, I think, we like to think we identify ourselves with them a lot. You are right. It's the same Wolof, it's the same language, same Mandinka, same Jola, and all of that. While giving the cultural orientation, like I told you, the Senegalese is much more easier to appeal to his optimistic side. And then also, they are more pragmatic. You understand? I can make a deal with you, even though we are not politically 100% aligned, but I can work with you. Why? We are the exception. Most people cannot do good teamwork. Even within the party itself, even within political parties, because the team spirit is not there. And then people are not saying, we gotta be pragmatic, let's make a deal. In politics, nobody can agree all the time. Never.
It's not possible.
Ever. No, it's not possible to do. But the Senegalese are a little bit more pragmatic. And I will come back to what I said. You can appeal to their optimistic side. In Gambia, what works for people that, especially people that have power, is to appeal to people's dark side, to bring fear. That's why in the last election, they brought fear. If you vote for these UDP people, they're going to send all of you out of the country. I spoke to people in Same. Right. You know how they keep polling. I grew up there and all of that. They tell me, well, you are telling us to vote for you guys, but they are telling us you're gonna send. I said, well, you're some more Sanchez de Cabini, right? Who's gonna send you out of your own village? But it appeals to people because you come to them and you say, well, this guy, he's speaking a different language and all of that, and then he's got it in for you. It works. It works. So Lolo Tagay, and then that's why it is very hard for us to do an idea-based politics. You have a 5-point agenda. People will say, oh, it has merit, but that's going to appeal to just the minority of people. Most people will vote for reasons other than what you are offering them to do. Maybe they don't like you. There is no doubt. Holding your nose and voting for somebody in Gambia. Ninyi duñ ko day mëna def. Buguma Musa Jeng buguma ko be pare duma ko sanil be pare buguma ko buga sax.
Buguma ko deglu sax.
Yeah, duma ko deglu. Musa is saying something that I don't want to hear, so dama get that completely. Duma ko deglu. And this is our problem. Constantly, this is our problem. We can, even not only in politics, in any social gathering, we can. Even in religion, look at the Ngiro Ngaro in religion.
Yes.
Everybody wants to be kind of just their own self. You know, and then you are saying, what? Why are you not emphasizing that? And then the most people we know in Deen are humble and they try to be persuasive, quiet type. Why party and everything we bring division. And that's it. That's what is different between us and the Senegalese. They are more pragmatic, and then they will. You can appeal to their optimistic
brighter side. No doubt. But Kebba, all right. Pastors have been out there with their prose, telling the youth, creating expectations. People are saying, okay, it's all nice and dandy. When you are outside, it's always easy to talk about this thing is wrong, this thing is wrong, there is corruption, there is poverty, people are taking the back way, dying in the oceans, there is this Nicaragua thing. Now it has become their problem. And people are saying, be ready now, Pastor. There is expectation. And it's not going to take long for the Senegalese people to say, okay, show me the beef. Do you think it's just going to be another disappointment by Pastor from the Senegalese people saying that because we all know the poverty. It's to get rid of the poverty, it's going to take time. How do you see that? The expectation that people have for Pastor and the reality of governance and governing. Senegal is still it's a developing country, massive poverty. How do you think that Pastef is going to maneuver to deal with the expectations from the Senegalese people?
Well, Musa, first thing you can address what is development? I'm going to Macky Sall build a very robust infrastructure in Senegal.
He did.
And you will go to Senegal and you see very nice infrastructure, a new airport, good roads and everything. But being in the United States for so many years, I have been watching what's going on in this country and read a little bit of the history of this country. And I come to realize and ask myself, what is really development? Development is not infrastructural development. when you say development, you're talking about the people. Infrastructural development is a necessary part of the whole developmental agenda. I remember moving Texas. I was seeing these roads, these rural roads, the OA FM 21, 22, FM, something number. So my own questions more, what is FM? The only FM I know is radio FM. So it was so strange. Then I just went and asked and do some digging into it. Come to find out that FM means farm to market.
Farm to?
So farm to market.
Mm-hmm.
So roads you don't build. They were not just building roads to impress the voters that we build these roads. There was a necessity to build these roads. So they were building these roads to enable the farmers to transport their goods to the market. That's why that's why the name FM, farm to market. So when they decided to build the roads, they were necessitating the transportation of the goods from the farm to the market. So they call these roads FM. So that tells you that development is all about people. You develop people. You necessitate commerce. You stimulate the economy. Economic activity start going on. So that is development. Development without linking it to economic activity, to economic development, is meaningless. Moi liñ doon wax noonu Saul bi Senegalese boobu doon wax ne kenn du lekk yoon yi ak airport yi. That's what it means. Development means lifting the economic status of the people. So you necessitate economic activity, economic development will take place. So from independence in Africa.
Kebba, I have to push back. Bilal, I don't want us to kind of take development and just put it on the margins. You will never be able to bring socio-economic development with the infrastructure. You're talking about a businessman who's going from Banjul to Woolley or from Banjul to, you need infrastructure. Look at the change that has happened in that Senegambian bridge. To tell you the truth, economic development, changing the lives of the people, you cannot do it without infrastructure, without roads, without that. That is essential. That is fundamental. So I think we need to be very careful to kind of try to slice and dice it, thinking that when you're talking about development, you're talking about, people's having food to eat, and absolutely important. Don't get me wrong. But I'm just saying, you will never be able to bring economic viability without that foundation, that infrastructure. I just thought I need to push back on that.
Well, Lolota Musa, bring my wala example that FM wrote. So what was the determining factor? More one, okay, in economics, you have limited resources and unlimited wants in economics. Buga buga yi no opa resources yi nga am.
Wow.
So linga def moy, you have to make a choice between buga buga yi nga am. So okay, let's say for example, we want to build roads all over the Gambia, but how are we going to prioritize this road building? Okay, so Fimekani, you produce a lot of rice in Central River region. Why? How are we going to transport that rice to the market, to Banjul, to Passe, and the rest of the country? So, okay, I'm naming 3 or 4 major roads you have. It will take this rice from Central River region to the rest of the country. So those are the roads that's going to be our priority to distribute that rice in the country. Why? So said law, all these infrastructural projects, how do they determine where to build the roads? The way they determine where to build the roads, more, okay, Upper River region, for Funonu, I'm now for a lot of support. So, I'm now this $10 million, I'm going to put it to Upper River region.
Right.
Well, okay, what is that region bringing to the economy? So it's purely based on politics. It's not based on economic decisions. It's not an economic decision. It's a political decision. Why Dikabini in the industrial world, they were basing their priorities on economics. It was not based on politics. It was economic decisions they were making. Now, okay, so you want to build road A and road B. Okay, how much money road A is going to bring to the economy, and how much money is road B going to bring to the economy? That's going to be the decision making. So, in Africa, our major obstacle is we make decision based purely on political gain, on political reasons. We don't make the decisions on economic reasons. Understand?
Absolutely.
So
the problem is not really the infrastructure; it's how it is allocated. You're saying political expediency.
Correct.
I mean, and not necessarily. But we have the activists. It's been so he wants to. He's addicted, and I'm the one so that is why you can see I'm very somber today, because stop somber. Stop somber. Where are you?
Musa.
Moose, I am here.
You're on mute.
And I'm unmuted now. And thank you to all those that are holding the fort. Kebba Foon, seeing Mr. Saul Badjie and they're gonna the other crocodile on the side, Karamba. But Moose, I have been listening in and out.
Right.
And I think there is something that I heard you say, and that is sometimes lost in all this. Can Gambia do what Senegal did? The question is, Senegal has done what Gambia did.
Exactly.
Ours, I think, was a lot more complicated than the Senegalese situation. And then now, of course, when something happens, everybody is trying to see how they can replicate that in their own countries. It's just like when 2016 happened. Some of us got calls from everywhere.
Exactly.
The Togolese wanted to know how we did it. The Burkinabes wanted to know how we did it. The Ivorians wanted to know how we did it. The Guineans. So we got all these calls, some of us, from people asking, how did you do this? What can happen? I remember being invited to a conference call by a group of activists from another country. And they wanted to know, what did we do? The fundraising aspect, the activist aspect. So it's like, if there is anything, we are also a reference to changing a government. Senegal changing a government is nothing new. In fact, if you study the Senegalese political landscape, it will look like every other 2 terms, they will not only vote in a new president, but they will vote in a new party.
Yes.
It was Wada. When Wada was gone, they brought APR. APR had a candidate in this election. They said, no, we want to go Pastef. And chances are in 10 years, they may go to another group. So this is nothing new in Senegal. But you also have to appreciate the resilience of the Senegalese people in fighting Maki's dictatorship, which I know you're not going to agree to. I don't care anyway whether you do or not. To at least make sure that at least they were able to salvage their country and have the change that they.
Yange break out the pop samba. We're losing you. one other Saul. There he goes again with this dictatorship thing. One now not once, not twice. You cannot. Can you imagine under a dictatorship? I can guarantee you that what we're witnessing in Senegal will not happen. That is the real truth. Under a serious dictatorship, Benin affair. But now,
go ahead.
As Maki, like I said, did he abuse power? I think he did. Was there a lot of overreaching? I think he did. But at the end of the day, I mean, did he kind of demonstrate dictatorial tendencies? In other words, hacking to the letter of the law, the powers that were given to him? Yes, he did. But at the end of the day, I think institutions withstood it, and whatever he wanted did not happen. If it was Soviet Union, we are talking a totally different story. If it were places like Venezuela or Iraq, it would be a totally different story. Even Iran, a theocracy, it would be a totally different story. That is why I've always been very, should I say, cautious by characterizing a situation as a dictatorship. Some people would even say, I remember we having this argument that even Gambia is under a dictatorship. I'm like, are you kidding me? I mean,
yeah, I believe that.
But I mean, no, but Gambia, you're Hamgana, bro. We are not under a dictatorship.
It's a democracy.
Dangerous. It means like yes. Sanitize seriously countries that are serious under a dictatorship. Yes, sanitize. When we were under a dictatorship, people were being slaughtered. That's what you are sanitizing, in other words.
No, no, Musa. Let me disagree with you. I think it happens at different levels. When Yahya Jammeh started to do whatever he ended up doing for 22 years, it was not cold turkey. He did not jump from being the good guy that promised to bring change to the country and all of a sudden started killing people. It was systematic. So let's not forget that when you categorize a particular person as a dictator, that somehow they have to be doing extraordinary things, Kebba and Karamba, that they have to do extraordinary things by torturing and murdering people in large numbers out in the open. They usually do these things in subtle ways, Musa. And this is where the difference is between categorizing or characterizing Maki as being a dictator or not. I believe he was dictatorial because what he did was dissolving the past political party. There was no constitutional law that gives Maki the power to do that.
Absolutely. There was abuse of power. But
okay, so that's dictatorial. Because
but Gambia, because you said you agree that Gambia is under a dictatorship.
Of course, because Adamo Barrow, let me give you an example here.
Yeah.
This activity of having what I call a demolition czar who goes around. Hold on, because leader vice president. I'm giving you an example. I mean, the fact that this guy, Coach Kanya, then you sanitize. Is there anything in the laws that gives Adama Barrow the powers to say and to give an executive order and say the national authority, the national authority head or whoever is this man, go out there and destroy properties that are in violation with our rules?
Yes, you are breaking the law. When you do something like that, you are breaking the law. Look, we can like or dislike.
Hold on.
But at the end of the day, I don't think there is anything dictatorial about that.
No, but why didn't let me finish, Musa. Let me finish my point. It is dictatorial because what Adama Barrow needs to do is he has to be able to draw his powers from a constitution, number one. But there are institutions that are responsible of enforcing them, Musa. You cannot have the National Road Authority take police and military officers, walk in the streets, and they are doing this indiscriminately. Some people may have been legitimately building their structures in places where they are. Now, I agree with you. Some of these structures were built in places where it's illegal, but did you see that they actually went into certain areas that they shouldn't have gone into to destroy these properties? Where does Adama Barrow draw his powers to be able to impose that will on the people? These are the things, they are subtle. The arrest of Madi Jabate, the arrest of these young people, You take a property that was owned by a Christian organization, and you went down there in plain sight, bring all the judiciaries who actually ruled against your government, that this property belongs to this institution, and you take it and give it to a Senegalese person and say, here, we want you to build a hotel here. Where's that hotel? Adama Barrow, I'm going to pivot back to this conversation, Musa. Adama Barrow, before the elections, was in a vehicle, driving it towards Bakau, and telling the security guard who was driving him that this vehicle was given to me by this Senegalese guy. Can you believe it? What are these signs that tell you that because of he's able to do these things, and nobody's able to challenge him and say what you just did is impeachable? He should have been removed. So these are dictatorial tendencies. But let me pivot back to Senegal. Musa.
You can decide. Saul, I'm going to come back to you. Pap Samba is on break. So
okay, go ahead.
So that we can just kind of monopolize the platform. Pap Samba.
Yes, and sorry about that. Well, dictatorship, you can have a dictator in a democratic setting. Like we had Trump, a dictator of the highest order, running democratic American system. So dictatorship, when we say dictatorship, it's not necessarily the whole system is dictatorial. But the person, like Maki, has dictatorial tendencies and was a dictator. In fact, his pronouncement to just ban Pastef based on a presidential order is the height of dictatorship. But like coming back to this issue, Musa, when good things happen to...
I argue with, even when they call Gambia dictatorship, Pasamba used to do that. He's a little bit much more cautious to characterize Gambia being a dictator under a dictatorship.
All I've been telling you, Musa, and I still need it. Adama Barrow has dictatorial tendencies and has manifested them over and over again. That I'm not going to walk away from. But well, that's fine. That's why you can just wake up and just decide, do whatever you want to do. When any leader that goes outside of the constitution to do anything, you are doing power. You are exercising powers that do not. Musa, you cannot. Musa, you cannot arrogate to yourself powers you do not have. There is a reason why there are laws, and the laws are supposed to restrain any leader so that you're not going to go outside of your way because you are a very powerful person.
We just need to be careful.
Musa, I'm not going to be. How about we come to this agreement? You stay careful and leave me to be carefree. No, I just want to say this before I go because I just have about 3 minutes or so and I'm out of here. Moine, I've seen a lot of people now throwing this whole thing, what can we do? We need these young people an inspirational young person to take over the country. We need a coalition. We need all this because everybody is now hyper about this whole thing.
Right.
And I think we need to just put on the brakes for a little and just chill.
Mm-hmm.
The salvation of the Gambia does not rest in a young person or an old person. We just need a genuine person to run the country. Let's remember, most of the people that are today called old were very young when they entered into politics. How old was Jawara when he became president?
In his late 30s. I mean, even Hussein in 1996, he was in his 40s. Can you believe that?
Yes. How old was Jammeh when he became president? Their whole 29. Council were young people. So what I'm saying here is first, Gambia doesn't need an old or a young person in particular to salvage the country. What Gambia needs is somebody who has an idea, somebody who is honest, somebody who is guided by patriotism to run the country. And I think we play this age thing too much. These old people. Yes, the young people have a stake in that country. But the very people that I see running from one political party to the other, looking for positions, are mostly young people.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to be able to put things in perspective. And when it comes to this whole notion of coalition, I have nothing against people building coalition, but coalition for what?
Mm-hmm.
We have to also look at that. What purpose? Are we interested in just elevating somebody else into power?
Mm-hmm.
So that they would lord over us and we'll form another coalition to try to remove that person so that we'll drive somebody else there? What I want to tell people is, if you want to engage in Gambian politics, get your hands dirty, very dirty. Don't sit on the fences thinking that by you having an idea, okay, that you can dictate the issues. No, Gambia is, Musa may like this. Nobody is restricted in the Gambia to be able to go and inspire people or look for votes. If you want to be voted into office, the people must buy into your ideas. If they don't buy into your ideas, you're not going to go anywhere. And for that to happen, you have to be able to toil and moil the soil, go into the political trade. Don't just sit there and think that just because of you are special, somebody is just going to lift you up from somewhere and say, you know what, let's make you president or a flag bearer. We are not as desperate as we used to be, Musa. Where we were looking for saviors. I don't think Gambians are looking for a savior now. That's not what Gambians are looking for. Gambians are looking for a genuine person that can help in elevating the livelihood of the Gambian people. We are not in a desperate situation. Do I want Barrow to be replaced? Yes. But I don't think it is I don't think we are in an existential threat. We do not have that where we have to just, forgo everything and say, you know what, let's just make Saul Badjie the next president. He's our savior. No, we are not looking for saviors. And I think this is why we have to be very careful as to who is elected next as president. We cannot go through this circle of just replacing one president with another and just going the same thing again. Let's form another coalition to replace this person. No, Gambians should be able to be given a chance to have a leader who would be able to address the basic needs and aspirations of the people. Otherwise, Musa, today it will be Musa Jeng president. Tomorrow we'll have problem and say, let's go around and rally around Kebba Foon president. Kebba Foon will do it. Let's go and go Saul Badjie. Before you know it, we'll all get in the past. Some of us do not even have that time. I don't think any one of us, all of us on this call, will be here over the next 4 political cycles. We would have been long gone, dead. Because in 20 years,
the next 4 elections.
In 20 years, some of you guys, you old people, Kebba Foon and Musa Jeng and Saul, will be in your very late 80s. Nobody will listen. Either you are dead or you're not. So time is not on our side. But anyway,
election cycle. Saul, I really want to come to you.
No. Also, it's something that you said about the expectations on Pasteur.
Yes.
The expectations are just as high as they were on Barrow. But again, this victory will only become a victory for the Senegalese people if they see themselves in it. If the change does not address the very aspirations why people died in this process or this thing, then it would not mean anything. And I think there are a lot of trappings in power. And I hope that they'll be humble enough and reach out to those that can change the situation in Senegal, irrespective of whether they support Pastef or other parties, to help solve these problems that Africans face. Like Kebba said, infrastructural development is very, very important. But unless the bread and butter issues of the average Senegalese and Gambians and Guineans are addressed, it will not mean anything to them. But with that, guys, thank you very much for holding the fort. I'll just leave you guys with dictator Musa Jeng.
It will not be the same. It will not be the same. We don't hear from you. Crazy
of
as
course.
You sound.
Of course, my Karamba. Right, guys.
Why? Bennett just be. I think Saul, and again, I apologize. Banka is on the phone from Gambia. Banka.
Let's go with Banka.
Bigger than that. No, definitely. We have Karamba, we have Saul Badjie, we have Kebba Foon, and then of course Sunwaji, the activist on steroids. So Banka, we were just talking. We've all witnessed what happened in Senegal. What's your take on it? What is Banka's take? something really
Musa,
happened.
nekkuñ ko dégg bu baax nag nekkuñ ko dégg yow kat volume.
The fact of the matter is that let's look at this and put it in the proper perspective. Every idea needs all the right conditions to flourish. And this idea, what time it always turns out to be a brilliant idea or a brilliant move. So then I just say, with Senegal, all the timing and all the things that could go right for the Sonko Jomai coup went right for them. And everything that could go wrong for, Beno Bokoyakar, the Macky Sall and went wrong for them. Anything. So even when we look at Macky's actions to sort of stifle their political rights and all these crazy things, the constitutional crisis that he engineered, all of the crazy stuff that didn't make any sense. All of those things work to these people their advantage. And the politically motivated, legal moves against Sonko himself and Joma, obviously, putting them in jail. All of these things, I mean, they are all orchestrated by none other than Macky himself. So I think these folks, when they were, Sonko and his the pastor folks were one very, very, I would say, genuinely in their struggle. They were very aggressive and they fought very, very hard. They were willing to go toe-to-toe with Macky. And they fought a good fight to get to where they were. And obviously, then Macky helped them along the way by simply just doing some of the dumbest things and making some of the dumbest moves. And then in the end, in the final analysis, even undermining his own candidate, Ahmad Bah, making sure that I believe Macky orchestrated Ahmad's downfall. So a whole lot of things that could go right for Pastef went right for them. And I think it's a well-deserved win for Pastef.
So I know that we were kind of going back and forth behind the scenes about the role that Macky played. That somehow, Macky was not really interested in Amadou Ba to be elected, and he actually wanted Pastef to win. Do you really mean that literally? Or did he just...
Yes, I do. I honestly mean that. And I think, I do believe. But somewhere along the way, when all the dust settles down and, when the practice are done and the game is over, I do believe that you will hear revelations that will come out to confirm what I'm saying. You look at Macky's actions and you look at the things that prevailed and you look at all the information that are now coming out as far as how Macky purposely tried to get in the way of this guy's campaign and not supportive of him in any way, form, or fashion. And looking at the folks, like say Karim Wade that he was vouching for and fighting for, so Karim could stand, and Karim to go and now join with these other guys that he released from prison by way of an amnesty. A whole lot of different actions that Macky was doing all of these to make sure that Pastef could win and Ahmad Ba lost. I have strong convictions as far as that issue is concerned.
I have a hard time being convinced on that because of this reason. It was Macky Sall that actually hired Amadou Ba, managing director of EMPO. It was Macky Sall that brought him and made him Minister of Finance. It was Macky Sall that hired him to be Minister of Foreign Affairs. It was Macky Sall, among all the candidates in Beno Bokayakar, he literally handpicked. He was given the powers to do that. He handpicked Amadou Ba. Now, how in God's name, and Macky, from day one, he did not want Pastef to win. He has done everything, even banning of Pastef, sending Sonko to jail, you name it, doing a lot of overreaching. Why would all of a sudden, Macky said, you know what, Amadou Ba, you're not my man anymore. I really want Pastef. It just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make political sense at all.
I hear you. But there is something called bias remote.
Bias
Macky
remote.
was the one who handpicked Ahmad Ba in there. It was Macky who was actually vouching for Ahmad Ba in the beginning, before he was even chosen. It was Macky, like you said, who actually put help him along the way and all these sort of things. But the fact of the matter is, when you look at Macky's actions, all throughout the course of all these events, you can see latest events that is. You can tell that most likely he had a bias remorse. He thought Ahmad Ba was going to be his guy. He's sort of like a guy who is going to do his bidding at the end of the day when he gets him to win, and maybe Ahmed Badjie didn't seem like a guy who will do that for him. So he had to go and get somebody else, but it's already too late for that because this guy's already picked. Because Maki's own actions, Maki's utterances, Maki's steps that he took, I can go through the list of actions, and I gave you some of them already, if you want to. But what I'm trying to say is this, that at the end of the day, Maki did not campaign for this guy. Senegal, the whole of Senegal can confirm that. At the end of the day, no resources of Maki's, their party resources were used to campaign for this guy.
No, he did give him resources, though. I did hear that from Amadou Ba himself. Resources were given to him.
Listen to me. From insiders, even the teasers that had Macky Sall and this guy on them. Macky Sall and Amadou Ba on teasers. Those teasers were never allowed to be released. And the order came from Macky Sall. And not to mention the fact that Maki's wing of that coalition, the Benabol Gokoya Karasi coalition, Maki's wing of the coalition, when you look at all of them, their actions, throughout, even in the regions where Maki is strongest, a lot of those areas that Amadou Ba is supposed to win, he ended up not winning because Maki and this coalition, side of the coalition, did not go out there and fight hard for this guy. It just never happened. Also, like I said, even looking at the coalition that came to be between, what's his name again, Karamba Touray and Pastor folks. At the end of the day, it was Maki. These are the two camps that Maki was fighting vigorously for at the tail end of things. He was the one who orchestrated the amnesty. He was the one who was insisting that these guys should be able to run all of them. He was Maki. So now, if you want to tell me that, Maki, with all the things he did to Pastor F, well, Maki turned around and he wanted to release, but he wanted Pastor folks to believe, and he wanted even Sonko to be able to run. So was there a change of heart along the way? Obviously, that's an indication of that. What I'm trying to tell you is, we don't judge his former actions by simply saying, he did this, so that could not be the case. Well, the far latter end of things, he turned around and he started doing things that showed you that this guy was in alliance of some sort with these people. Because it was the same Maki who sent them to jail, who actually made sure that they had an amnesty to get out of jail. And it was Maki who was insisting that they should be able to run. It was the same Maki who was insisting that Karamba should be able to run. Even after having been disqualified by the Constitutional Council. So what I'm saying is, if you say one thing on the other side, then look at it from the other side also. And look at what Maki did before and after. It was the after actions that I'm alluding to. All of them indicate that Maki was going sour on his own candidate. In the end, he didn't want him to win, even though he chose him. And in the end, he was this other side that he was marching for. It was that plain and simple. And I'm convinced.
I'm not convinced, but let me hear from the other guys what they think about your suggestion. And Saul, I think you were the one. So Banka, just hold on a minute there. But Saul, you heard what Banka is saying. Basically, Maki went out of his way to sabotage Amadou Ba, his handpicked man, and was much more interested in seeing, I guess, Pastor to be elected. What say you to that? Banga.
Well, I disagree with my Nyancho to some extent, but then he's poking at some of the inconsistencies of Maki's behavior, and then we pivot and give him credit that it was intentional. Young Madiga.
Banga, you gotta be on mute there.
So my point is, Musa, maybe we should look at it from a logical standpoint. As a politician in the capacity of Maki of so many years of experience, that he would, after trying to isolate this guy, after trying to completely distinguish himself, Amadou.
So definitely.
Why did I'm on call being so I have to start it off. So what I'm saying is, after all these years, 9 years, Macky Sall don't try to make sure that this guy Sonko does not have an opportunity to compete, to the extent that he would dissolve his political party and lock him up in jail and lock up so many people. And then, Musa, we forget to mention this. There is a huge price that Maki has paid in his attempt to self-perpetuate. First, he couldn't succeed in the third term, and then the next thing is the economical implications of what Senegal had to go through, Musa. Not to even mention the destruction of the name. This was the golden platter that Senegal has always had. That Youssou was able to promote that country, that investors came to that country to invest, that Senegal is usually, it has always stood as the democratic beacon of the continent of Africa, that the institutions were solid, that everything was going in its direction, that they have never had a time in their history where a presidential election was postponed, or you could call it democratic coup d'etat, by going to parliament to make sure that they postpone these elections because somebody else in a foreign country who was accused by Macky Sall, and they left the country. They and they
So I'm not gonna correct that. Let me bring in Kebba Foon. Kebba.
Yes, yes, Father Moses.
Yeah, Yange Dega Banka and his analysis. Before I get to Karamba.
Well, yes, Angedega Banka. That I mean, it just reminds me of another African country. And throughout the years following African politics, it's nothing new what Macky was doing.
Yeah.
It happens all over the continent. Macky, at first, wanted a third term. So his focus was to get a third term. That didn't work. So he said, okay, I'm going to make sure that my main opponents, I will bar them from running. And that was his strategy, to put Sonko in jail and get rid of Pasteur. That didn't work. He got a candidate and realized that, oh, wait a minute, this candidate is not strong enough. It's not going to be a strong candidate against Pasteur. So he realized that, well, I have to change strategies. Then I have to move and see how I can appease Pasteur so they will not go after me. So I have to change the strategy and go to the next strategy by letting these guys out of prison. So yeah, Banka was right. It's Macky that orchestrated the release of Sonko and Jimoy. He orchestrated everything with the hope. And before he did that, he even trying to bring Karim Wade into the race. So all those were strategies that are normal. I mean, it happens all over the continent.
So do you think that he was doing that to basically sabotage Karim Wade? I think it's very simple the way Banka is putting it, because I mean, there is this lady, Rohi Barrow, I believe. He said Macky wanted Sonko to qualify at the last minute because he knew that qualifying Sonko would also qualify Karim Wade, and that would dilute the anti-APR vote. Sonko knew this and refused the offer, and that's the only reason PDS, that is Abdoulaye Wade's party, endorsed Jomai in the end. If Karim had run, there would have been a second round of voting, and there is no guarantee Jomai and Pastif would have been elected in the end. For me, this Rohi Barrow, she's hitting it right on the nail. This was politics of Macky. It has nothing to do with not Banka. I don't know whether you're listening to that. It has really nothing to do with sabotaging of.
I don't buy that.
I mean, but basically the lady is saying, look, this was politics. Because Macky knew exactly what he was doing. Come on, Nani, the way things were, the structure of it. I mean, obviously Pastef would win, no doubt. Hamon Nani, Amadou Ba is a weak candidate. He doesn't have the charisma, and he definitely was not, winning the hearts and minds of the Senegalese people. Remember, Macky's obsession my one for Pastef not to be elected. So at the end, Lolo more led to postponing the elections to give themselves time so that they can strategize, so that they can mix it up. Now,
look at it this way. Look at it this way. Karim Wade, that's where constitutional crisis started when Karim Wade
yes,
went out there, accused Amadou Ba
Yes.
Listen to this very, very carefully.
Yes.
Accused Ahmed Ba of bribing the Constitutional Council so he doesn't qualify.
Right.
They can disqualify him.
Yes.
This was how it went down.
Yes.
Because he knew that Ahmed Ba was excited and happy that he was not going to be able to run. Listen to this very, very carefully. Because the way the whole game was set up, he was Ahmed Ba's game at that point. Ahmed Ba and his was exciting on their part in terms of the fact that this guy cannot run and Sonko too cannot run. So now the field was an open field. Now, you could say that maybe they were blindsided by Jomai. They didn't see Jomai as a formidable candidate. You could also throw that in there. What I'm trying to tell you is that the whole game plan, as far as Ahmed Ba is concerned, was perfectly in shape. Notice that this whole thing was peaceful, everything was quiet, everything was going as planned. It was only when Maki rose up and said, oh, you know what Karamba is saying is true. We need to go back and revisit all these decisions as to how these people were disqualified, because they should be qualified. We should be able to find a way to get them to become qualified. This was Maki. And I'm sure Ahmed Ba and his folks are sitting there going, what the hell? What are you doing? Just leave this thing alone. What are you trying to do? Maki was then pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing. So you cannot convince me. But somehow Maki was doing that for the guy who is saying, no, don't do this. This is the way things are right now. I like it. Because that's why Karim himself was accusing Ahmed Ba of being the one who was orchestrating the whole thing. So again, that argument sounds great, but I don't think it's plausible in light of the sort of the dynamics as to who decides is playing what. Why would Ahmed Ba, if Maki was working in Ahmed Ba's favor, why would Ahmed Ba not really be excited about that whole prospect of having these people to run? Why wouldn't he?
Maybe. Anyway, Karamba.
Yes.
Or was he not communicating with Maki and they were not on the same wavelength? They were not having a meeting and having a conversation about these things?
Banka, let's hear from Karamba. Karamba,
yes.
you following this whole discussion about Maki sabotaging Ahmed Ba? What's your take? And you heard what Banka is saying.
I heard what Banka said. I'm willing to grant him that there might be some aspects of bias remorse in terms of just the candidate not gaining traction and not connecting with voters and then looking weak and effectively unelectable. But that was at the terminus of an orchestrated process in which Maki tried everything, primary among which was to try to get a third term for himself. When that failed, this was the backup plan. Now, it could be that, as Banka suggested, that he put all his eggs in the Ahmed Ba basket, but as soon as he was unveiled, he figured that this guy is a dud. He's not going to be able to make it. Then the question then becomes, what does he do? The idea that he could go out there and then flex his muscle is to assume that he has a deliverable or a transferable clout that can then get this guy elected. I don't think that is the case. Because in Africa, the influence is gone. You are really not in a position to swing people. Yeah, I mean, as soon as you lose power, everybody associated with you is basically, operating on borrowed time. They are just not able to sustain it because of the way power is concentrated in the Senegalese system. Maki was Maki, and then he pulled all the strings. I do not believe that he went on the mat for Pastef. I mean, that it will take an incredible suspension of disbelief to assume that people and a movement that he was mortally fearful of, who he was willing to bend Senegalese law to ban them, and then to round up their leaders, and then to also use extreme violence to suppress their street muscle. Because he understood Pastef had street muscle, which was what he was most fearful about. That he could have basically a mass movement revolution on his hands. That was what he was playing to. So I will grant my friend Banka the idea that there might be some bias remorse, because munga junju sambor, and then the galgal is not that good, that this guy is going down. So, but at that point he was out of options. He could not continue on the on the strong hand that he was doing, because the strong hand was not working. It was only making Pastef stronger. And then Pastef has also outmaneuvered him by having a backup plan, a series of backup plans. So at that point, he just dealt the cards he just had to deal with the cards that was left in his hands, which was to look like he's trying to kind of come back to his senses and at a minimum conduct a free and fair election, which he did. His administration conducted a free and fair election, but his hands were forced. At that point, he could not do anything. And the fact that he did not campaign for Amadou is because this guy has been around the system and he's been president for 12 years, because he knew there was no card for him to play for him. You understand? Other than tepidly saying, well, he's my candidate and I endorse him, and that, making it look like this is his guy. But he is not going to break a sweat. He has no sweat to break for him.
Karamba, what I've always believed, Moini, even after the selection of Amadou Ba, and him knowing, just like you alluded to, that Amadou Ba is not really going to win based on what he was saying. So what Macky wanted to do was scramble the deck. Yeah. That's what led to even postponement of the election. If I scramble it, and then what happened, Banka? You're saying, when they accuse Amadou Ba of bribing the judge, what Macky saw there was an opportunity. He's like, okay, this thing is out there, so it's an opportunity to go to the National Assembly, all right, and then create this delay. All of that was to scramble the deck.
Yeah.
And the releasing of Sonko, no, seriously, man, the releasing of Sonko and Jumai, what Macky was basically trying to do, that a possibility of even having Karim Wad to run, that would definitely, I mean, your guess is good as mine. Because when he was convinced, the way the structure is, there was no way his candidate would have won. So man, I wouldn't really, all of that was done for.
But then Macky and Amadou Ba were not on the same wavelength. Macky is doing one thing when Amadou Ba is doing another. The fact of the matter is, I am trying to tell you that the way the things were set up by the Constitutional Council, it was Amadou Ba's game at that point, and he liked it. Macky was the one who came from left field, and they started this whole fracas about the constitutional, and they started a constitutional crisis. It was all done. That was all orchestrated by no other than Macky, not by Amadou Ba.
But why was it? The question though, I have to push back. The question is, why did Macky say that? Was it what you're saying is he simply did to sabotage Amadou Ba?
No. I didn't say that he's orchestrated the constitutional crisis to sabotage Amadou Ba. I didn't say that. And then what's my mouth? What I'm trying to tell you is, I'm just using your own words to show you that what I am saying makes more sense. And that is this, that you are saying that, well, I mean, at the end of the day, when you look at it, Macky Sall was making this move so that these people can run. And then when they can run, then that really dilutes the whole process.
Exactly.
And allows these guys to be able to get that. That's what you do. Yeah, that's how it works.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to say that, well, on the contrary, though, if that was what Macky Sall's plan was,
yes,
then he didn't sit down and outline that whole plan to Amadou Ba and make him understand that that's what he's trying to do. Because that goes against what Amadou Ba was trying to do. Amadou Ba and his folks were excited about the fact that these people have been knocked out of the whole electoral process. That is Sonko and Karim Wad. Now, in fact, that's why Karim Wad was accusing him of being the one who bribed the judges to disqualify him. This is the problem, and that's what started the whole conversation. It was Macky. When Karim Wad said it, then Macky said, yeah, it's true. It's true. Let's go, in fact, revisit all of these decisions. Macky was fighting against the Constitutional Council. He had a nasty confrontation with them. No, and he was doing all that for Amadou Ba.
I believe so. I really believe so. I really believe so. But in the final analysis, Banka, what Amadou Ba wanted, in the final analysis, what Amadou Ba wanted, that's exactly what Amadou got. And he couldn't even pull it. He lost even in the first round.
No. It's not what Amadou Ba really wanted. What Ahmed Bang wanted was for Macky Sall, his main man, to use his clout, to use his resources, to use his position, to use his connections, to use his establishments and franchises that he set up all over the country. He wanted Macky Sall to use all that to help him to win.
Yeah,
He was Macky's style.
but Banga,
Was Macky just simply withdraw all that support and just wait the guy out by himself. Unfortunately, by then, Macky had already created a lot of liability for the guy.
No, but
Banga, Suma is interjecting.
Banga.
Yeah. Right.
Now, the time of Macky had already created a lot of liability for this guy, a liability that he could have at least helped mitigate. He had just simply gone to his constituencies and make sure that at least the diehards that are still Macky to vote for Amadou. But you know that there is empirical evidence, both in terms of the electoral numbers and both in terms of the support base and both in terms of the statistics that have been carried out that are out there in Senegal, that in fact what's his name again?
Amadou.
Macky Sall's party within the coalition did not vote for this guy. Instead, they voted for Jomai. That's empirical. There's empirical evidence for that all over the place. Because you have to remember the last election cycle, Sonko came third. He only got 15% of the votes. This time around, that whole number got flipped. It looked like Macky, whatever was on Macky's side, literally went to this guy.
I don't know about that. How about the
despite all Macky's behavior, even Donald Trump, despite his behavior, he still has a core base that still will have voted for him. But I understand all those.
But that's where the 30-something% came from. He got 30-something% of the vote.
The 30-something% of the votes are the ones that.
So Karamba, let Karamba Banga.
Oh, Karamba, what I wanted to tell
you, we're gonna come to you real quick.
Okay, but Banga, what I wanted to tell you, the moment Macky Sall stepped on that exit ramp, he does not have deliverable political clout of the sort that you think he could if he went out and then put his neck out there for Amadou Ba. It couldn't be done. That's the whole point. And that is not because out of some conspiracy.
I disagree with that. There was still a core base that would have voted for Amadou Ba.
But we get you vote at the end in the final analysis.
That is the 30% you see because
that's the
30%.
No, but listen, Banga.
I couldn't hear him, but
I'm the rest of the coalition voted for Amadou Ba. But most of basically a huge number of Macky's own base side of the coalition, his party within the coalition, those ones went and voted for Jomai.
Banka. There were 3 other candidates from Benno Bokk Yakaar. There was the John guy. There was, they got 1%, 0.08% of the votes. So where do you think the 30-something% came from? The one that voted for Amadou Ba? Like who?
We are not hearing him at all.
Oh, guy, yeah. Okay. Yeah. They can hear you now.
Okay.
How many parties?
There was a part of PAS. You gotta be. There was a part of PAS, and then you have APR, and some of these other. Senegal, they have coalitions all over the freaking place. But if you're talking about, I don't think that the PAS people. There was a breakaway. That is the Halifa Salah's part of PAS and Barthelemy Dias. There were also the Mustafa Anyas, I believe, part of the PAS that stayed with Macky. Again,
Idrissa Seck too. Idrissa Seck.
No, Coco 1% la. Boy, Coco amul 1% sa.
No, but what Luma wax mooy ne ñi nga xam ne they try to distance themselves from the choice that Macky made. Man, xaaral ma bàyyi ngeen lifin, and I'll come in and comment
Because
on that.
Idrissa
Ma
Seck
bàyyi
was not part of the Benno Bokk Yakaar, xam nga. He was obviously the one that came second actually. I mean in the last election, presidential elections. So Banka, but anyway, Kebba, I mean, you've been quiet for a while, and I really want you to comment up. You've heard what Banka is saying. You know how he is. Sometimes he go off tangent. So what do you think of what Banka is saying?
Well, Majohla, a story of another African country where the outgoing president served his 2 terms, and he got his own candidate from his party, but he realized he didn't get a good candidate. Exactly the same situation between Macky Sall and Amadou Ba. So what he did was, he already served his 2 terms. What he did was, he actually sponsored the opposition candidate. Yeah, give him money. give him money. Then
that's not what happened in Senegal.
No. And the reason was the outgoing president was accused of massive corruption in that country. So he had to protect himself. So by sponsoring the opposition to win the elections, so he can be protected when they come into government.
That's exactly what was going to protect him if he'd been accused of massive corruption.
And they did. And they did. When they come into government, they protected him. They didn't do nothing to him.
You know that my batting average is now 10 out of 10, right? You know that, right?
Your batting average.
Oh man.
Even insiders talking. I mean, they will confirm a lot of this, what I'm saying. And then you come back here again and you're like, and this one is on audio. We are all hearing you. Right? So, anyway, I got to run. But thank you so much.
All right, Baghdad.
I'm so glad to hear from you, my man.
Nyanjo.
All right,
Thank
you very much. We really appreciate it.
Why Musa? Musa,
Karamba.
I come back to the theory that somebody who is on the exit ramp is in no position, and I agree with you that he did try to scramble the whole process. And then the scrambling of the process, you cannot reasonably construe that to be a maneuver to empower Pastef. No. Even if you assume that he wanted to dilute the strength of Pastef, but that is not in active opposition to his own chosen guy.
Mm-hmm.
You understand? So I think maybe Banka is it's being a little bit believing that he conspired to undo his own candidate.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah, I think Market tried to. He was also partially responding to outside pressure, and I know Saul mentioned it, and we did not discuss this very in any kind of a detail. But he was under immense pressure from ECOWAS, from the AU, from the international community that he was heading towards a perilous path, that the constitutional calendar had to be upheld. So what do you do in a hand where you are facing tremendous internal political pressure? You are also facing internal division within your own coalition, and then you are also facing external things. So he did what he could have only done, which is to organize a free and fair election. And then he did scramble it, maybe to dilute the thing. But Pastef was already a phenomenon that they could not stop. So Amadou, the 30-something, because Amadou did not have, and I think Banka failed to appreciate this, Amadou does not have an independent political base of his own. He was a protege.
Constituency. The guy's been
exactly. He was a protege of Macky. Like you said, he elevated him through the bureaucracy, and then he handpicked him. So the idea that somehow this guy can muster something independently, this is the residual power base of the market coalition. That's
Exactly.
the 30% he got. He couldn't have gotten anything more because he brings nothing else to the table. And then the past people were able to define him as being a creature of the terrible system, that he was also personally corrupt. Because I've heard Sonko say, when they were at the empire, he took the money and went to take Sisu.
No, why Karamba?
Yeah.
When I saw that, I think Sonko was playing politics with that.
Of course, he was playing politics because he wanted to paint the guy as manifestly corrupt.
Exactly. Exactly.
That's what it is. Because corruption resonates with people, Musa. Most average people don't like corruption.
It does. When I saw that press conference, and look, Usman Sonko's reputation, you talk to any of his supporters, the average Senegalese, so his whole thing is about his integrity and honesty. And he played it to the hilt. When he came out, it's like, forget about Maki. Maki is gone. Why Amadou Ba?
Moko Genabo?
That is to reinforce.
Yes, absolutely.
Exactly what he was saying. He knew exactly.
Why most? Amadou Ba get the opportunity to defend himself. Why didn't he defend himself?
He did not rebut it.
That's a good point, Kebba.
I saw him he was on KFM.
Yeah.
On KFM, and he was dealing with this issue itself. They asked him directly. And he was like, look, man, Director General. Do you seriously believe some of his fam neck? He didn't know, man,
no, but
it worked.
What they have done successfully is to define their opponents, and Pastef did that. They define their opponents and they define themselves. They call themselves patriots. You understand? So by default, anybody who is not them is less than a patriot.
Yes.
You understand? And then also they take this specific issue of these are establishment candidates that have just kind of ruined the place for everybody. It's time to send them packing. That's why Idrissa Seck went from 20% to 1%. You understand? Because he said, look, this guy, Moyaka Politica. He said one time the guy showed up at his house, time header early in the morning. He wanted to make a deal. Muneko Idrissa, you love it. Utsuba tells in it. Hana hedanga muneko fila ko yakare one.
Yeah, kapare mujil ko fanya.
It's unbelievable. I mean, look at Khalifa Sall too, a popular mayor from Dakar.
Yes.
Everybody thought he was going to do well, but I couldn't even believe it. I mean, it was an affair, definitely.
Yeah. But Musa, I'm just want to press my point now because I had these calls.
Sorry about that. Go ahead.
That impacted me. For now, I'm getting all of these. Hold on. I think I'm getting.
Yes.
Okay, so that went away. So we talked about humility, credibility of Sonko, the strength of the messaging. Well, I'm not questioning like you on Kebba Karamba. Kebba was trying to answer the question about the fact that the infrastructure was tied into the economic activities of wherever farmers were. And you wanted to ask him the question by saying you were kind of a little bit skeptical of the fact that infrastructure and the other part of the economic growth are not separate. They should be one and together. So we don't answer that question, and you mentioned the fact that the Senegambia bridge and all of these things that are tied into economic growth. As we pivot into discussion in conclusion, what is it for us, Gambia? Before we close, what does this say about our own country? Even though we have tried to kind of see the parallels between what happened in Senegal and what happened in our country in 2016 and today. But look about you know what? If you want to build infrastructure, and this is what some of the things Pastef claimed about, the building of these stadiums and all of these things they claim was the West saying to Maki, you know what, show the infrastructure because people want to see tangibles. But in the end, when people didn't have something to put on the table, this was what really became the pivot of the downfall of Maki. The Bankalum don't nekadi wax nonu ne Amadou Ba. Yes, we all know that there was a rift. The Senegalese media were reporting this, the credible ones. And Maki tended to act in a certain way. There was a rift between him and Amadou Ba. In some cases, you can say there was a sabotage. I don't think necessarily Maki did not pick candidate. Mune Pastef has been my enemy since day immemorial. Mandama jiki rek change, just like Kebba was saying. I'm going to support Pastef such that tomorrow they will not be against me or they will not call me to book for all of the malfeasance that happened. That is not going to happen. Maki knows that because well, how many times has he asked to have an audience with Sonko Bany? So this notion lolu dina wara happen in the long run at the tail end. Foog naa ne lolu moom you know lolu la pichay naawe sa waji bala jaxumpa lolu la dewa. So but
You know it.
yeah. So Musa, lu xew mooy ne the pressure was there. At the end, Maki gis na ne foog mu hold the elections and then perhaps be able to see if we can get some leverage. But the sad part is Musa, Maki is probably not going to stay in that country, which is going to make him the first president to take flight of his home country after doing some good work. We have to give him credit. But then Musa, the economic and democratic implications of what he did. Lolu, it will be in Maki's book of history for postponing the elections and putting Senegal through the crisis that they went to the brink of maybe having a military takeover for the very first time in their history. Fognale Lolu, it puts people on the edge to the extent that the United States would put pressure on his neck to make sure we held the elections. So moving forward, Musa, we're talking about, you are going to questions about Lala Paste the issue. And the question was, you look at their manifesto, they're talking about resigning from the Paste political party, which the Jamai Faye did, that he is not going to associate himself in the role of the position that he held in Paste. He's still a party member, but he's no longer going to hold that position. There are signs in that manifesto or the agenda. It's a simple one, but one that came clear to me was the fact that they have now suspended funding the president's office for political rallying or campaign. The funds have been taken out. And then the other thing, when they introduce this dualism, they want to introduce English language into their curriculum, Musa. So Lulu Dafni Wara one, we should be very prepared as a country that Senegal is beginning to position itself to say we're not just going to be a country that is going to be of a French speaking, but we want to also include kind of posture towards the West, where English language is probably the most pronounced language that is spoken out there. And the third thing is they are talking that they want ECOWAS to begin the process of introducing that ecosystem, absent of which Senegal would pivot to introducing their own currency outside of the CFR. These are very important things that ñun dañ ko wara bàyyi xel. Musa, because you guys are going to probably pivot into this. The conversation for us in the country of Gambia, Moine, where do we stand to be able to compete with Senegal? You put a perspective of an anecdote of the United States and Canada. The United States is the most powerful country, but Canada is able to compete. What do we have in our home country as Gambia to be able to put on the table, to be able to present ourselves and compete, not necessarily compete with Senegal, but have this value chain of trading between these two countries? Right now, they are at an advantage. And I guarantee you, if we don't get our acts together, we will be left behind because we have a president, I'm sorry to say this, he does not understand the implications of what he is doing. Unless we need to really advise Adama Barrow, send Nala that clip of where our economic situation is in our country. This has to be a serious conversation. Madame. Man nekkuma di leen dégg nag Musa.
I'm gonna fana legi. I need to. No man. I mean, I listened to it a little bit, but I also
Mhm.
we also need to be careful with some of these propaganda too. Was that a deliberate propaganda from that was orchestrated? But anyway, I mean, I'm willing even to send it to the Minister of Finance to get his reaction. Like, what do you say to this? You know what I mean? Is that
There
coming
might
from
there might be
behind?
some propaganda. Is man, I was just
Okay, because
most of my
anybody
interest was on the
nowadays,
numbers.
anybody
Mhm.
nowadays can put together, I mean, a propaganda against Saul Badjie or against the UDP or against Doi, and make it look like, it's coming from a well-established institution. That's why I'm always
Yeah, but
careful.
the numbers are spot on though. The most important part of it. How much did we borrow during the Jawara regime? Which
Mhm.
I'm always supportive of the PPP. How much did the
But you
IJM
told
borrow
me
during
you
his
gotta
term?
factor
And
in
how much?
inflation,
Hmm?
borrowing $500,000 during back in 1965. It's not the same as
Yes.
$500,000. It's like maybe $3 million in today's present value. So that has to be factored in. And when we had the Minister of Finance here also, and again, I don't want us to talk about that because people don't even they haven't seen that video. Minister of
Correct.
Finance did explain that they had to inherit. There were a lot of liabilities in the books. For instance, NAWIC, that they had to take it over, government. Again, I don't want to sound like I'm defending them, but it is what it is. Kebba.
Most,
So,
can I come in?
yeah.
Yeah, I saw the video,
Mm-hmm.
and numbers don't lie.
Mm-hmm.
The, whether that was an AI generated video, and I believe it was an AI generated video. And
Exactly.
the reason why
I
the
agree with you, Keba. I agree with
Yeah.
you. Yeah.
yeah, and the reason why the numbers don't lie is the computer went and get those numbers from the World Wide Web. They
Mm-hmm.
cite those numbers, and those numbers are accurate. It's
Mm-hmm.
accurate. It's a fact that Barrow took more loans more than Jawara and Jame combined,
Mm-hmm.
and that's a serious situation. It's very, very, very serious.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you are right. You cannot compare the dollar value of 2024 to 1960. It's a different value.
Mm-hmm.
But what you look at the trend.
Mm-hmm.
If we go from less than 20% of our GDP
Mm-hmm.
to over 100 and something percent of our GDP, then we have a
Mm-hmm.
serious problem.
Mm-hmm.
So that is the problem, Musa.
Mm-hmm.
The Barrow was just taking loans left, right, and center. I don't care. And he's putting the country into a deeper and deeper and deeper mess, Bohamne. It will take generations and generations and generations to come out of this mess. We might not ever come out of this mess. It's a big mess, Musa. It's a very serious problem. Yes, Saul, Lingawa Degala, we have a very serious problem in our hand. If we don't have to take Barrow out for any reason, this is one reason why we have to vote Barrow out 2026. He must go.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
He must go.
Karamba,
Yes.
as we are as we are looking at 2026, I mean it's not far off. We're in 2024. We all can see we're already diving into April, and it won't be too long. 2026. What do you think we should learn from what happened in Senegal, and
Yeah.
how could we at least use that to get ourselves ready for 2026 to bring
Yeah.
about change? No matter what we all disagree with, the kind of change, who we want to be the change agent, I think there's unanimity that Gambia needs an opportunity to bring about change.
Yeah.
How do you think this Senegal experience
Yeah.
can be utilized to help us with that endeavor?
Yeah, good question. But first, I want to associate myself with what both Saul and Keba said, which is that the debt portfolio and the burden It's a disaster, and it is not only a disaster for the current, the current citizens that are living the situation, but then the opportunity cost down the road is even higher than the high cost of living and inflation and economic ruin that it is doing now. And I also agree that it is not a manageable debt. We cannot pay. There is no way up to our grandchildren. They cannot pay it. It cannot be paid. And it will continue to drain resources from other vital areas, like health and education, and then also reorienting our economy itself. Because the dollars is almost, it feels like a safer. There is no value to it and all of that. So I just wanted to say it's a very serious problem, and it's an issue that is not often understood by the ordinary citizen out there. How does the debt burden affect me? If you put it as an election issue, you will get a blank stare from a lot of people, because they don't. It's not. They cannot relate their fate to that particular economic burden. So, pivoting back to your question, what do we have to do? We need to take issues like this and make them front and center in a way where the Madisise that you had in Balangar can understand. So before in Wasu, what you were buying for 500 is now 1,500. Because these people, they've been borrowing to the hilt. Because low gender, so the voter has to make that connection. So what we have to do, and this applies to anybody who wants to be an agent of change. I have a political party, I'm a partisan. I believe we have the best prescription. But people that are also part of independent movements, those of you who have these platforms where your raison d'etre is to discuss public issues, you need to bring this to the public understanding that these are the issues and here is how it affects them. There is a deficiency between the issues and people's understanding of the issues and how it affects them. So that's why our politics is hobbled by what I had discussed earlier, that it's all identity politics. It has nothing to do with the greater good.
Correct.
You understand? So to answer your question, 2026 has to be about what kind of a country do we want, because we already know what this current administration is about. We know what President Barrow's orientation is. We know the kinds of people he attracts. If Soko said, he attracts the same kinds of people. Political opportunists who have nothing, no interest or no investment in anything other than themselves. Man Musa Jeng, I am willing to go into the trenches with this guy because Olunako. There is nothing that they do that is not about themselves and their personal advancement. Anybody you bring in his team. And these are the kinds of people. He's not attracting patriots. Pasamba mentioned about patriotism, and that's also something Lunga Hamne, we have a deficit of Musa in our politics. Well, for me, politics is just as an escalator for personal achievement. The Moboka party Sangamti, as soon as they win, they have to give me a job. They have to give me this, they have to give me that. So we are not approaching this as selfless patriots. And then he's willing to fight for it. So they can and we have far little of those. So that's why you can see people in the painting pantarek Mangisi party being it's elected them across carpet, buying us my own party, definitely, or what kind of a citizen? I'm coming to declare you because Damala bring you suma group being about Damala you to this political party. A citizen that is doing that is almost like livestock. Because that make the hell out of Sabopa. Yo Musa Jeng can munula jebale full them. And that's because you have taken the time to understand what your role is as a citizen. So this is all a problem for us. It's not about issues. It's too much personality driven. It's too much process driven. It's too much identity driven. And then, and even people sitting down and then, some people will say, well, you cannot be an independent. I believe that you need political independence in our politics. You have to swing from one side to the other.
I know. People will tell you that it's impossible. Then you're no burek. I'm not full far.
Yeah.
They don't believe me.
Why should you far everywhere? Why should you for anywhere? Anyway,
Exactly.
Munga an independent, and me as a UDP person, it is my job,
Yes.
to give you a reason why you need to vote for our guys.
Exactly.
If I don't cut it with you, you can find somebody else. I need to be able to go to Kebba, Munna Dem Sisol, or anybody else, or even people within my base. I need to give them a reason why they need to be much more enthusiastic to go and do that. That's what you do.
Exactly.
That is what politics is supposed to be about. Why Agunfa? And this is a big problem that we have. What we have learned from Pastor Moy, a vision is good. Why the vision has to have a visionary leader also. Understand? Kunga hamne, I'm not credibility with the people. Usman Mune, well, ligay for 15 years. So come. That is somebody who is putting his neck out there. And then people are saying, well, we know all these MPO people, they are building, Alamidis and all of that. Exactly. Understand? So that gives you credibility. So Soko Ane then everybody else is willing to say, well, look, this guy, I think I can go to battle with him. Because with him being the field commander, somebody may battle with him, will be fighting for the right things. Most of our politics in Gambia is transactional.
Yes.
And then no matter how hard you try to explain to people, this is your life. Musa.
Yes.
So, if he is able to recruit somebody and then kokunahla, and then it has nothing to do with your interest, that is your problem.
Definitely.
Yes, the problem la moneka. So Puruman 2026 has to be about the Gambian voter. Who is he? Lan la ko rewam jaral. That's the question we need to ask. What is your fate? So we can be kat nga yo ninga sonne ni danga buga continue si mem sonna bi nda danga buga try something else. Yo be kat bi yo ya muna decide lolu non. If you are a businessman, with the economy going down, the currency going down, and all of that, is it really in your interest to continue with the same team? If you whatever you do, so you are a construction guy, really is what you are earning enough to give you the standard of living that you are doing? Because everything is so expensive, and everybody has to ask themselves these questions and then decide accordingly. So the Lolo will be repeating the same thing. It will be the same sujer politics. And then they'll go to the same people, and then they will bring fear and tribalism. That's what they drive. That Lolo Moy, the biggest hobble we have. Why, if people are well informed, they put the country first. They become resistant to that. Nobody can pitch BS tribalism to you, Musa, because it's not going to fly. Why, trust me, it will work with somebody else.
Oh, it will.
Oh, of course. It will work with somebody. So it's the voter. What is going to be different in 2026? Because we all know the issues.
Yeah.
On our side, we will still bring our agenda, the 5.8, because we think it's good for the country. Why? We need to package it differently. We need to make sure that it has traction. But we need to be able to add to our base. This is a base plus election. If everybody just relies on your base, it's not going to happen. Because there are just basically two major contenders here for now. Unless there is a stronger third party movement, it's not like 9 different briefcase political parties. I'm talking about people. The new entrants in the politics, Musa, they don't want to get into the trenches. Politics, then say Sona. It took Pastor 10 years, 9.5 years.
Exactly. People think the Pastor just came out of last year.
It didn't come out of the thing. You know how many people, they built up their ground game and they paid the price. So and you have to be willing to be put
for 9-10 years.
Absolutely. When Usman and Jomai came out of prison, they went to a hotel. They didn't go to home to the wives or anything. They went to a hotel chain, and then they are on the convoy. Tiweri out of prison. And then that was just the tail end of a very, very long struggle. Senegal in diaspora, they have a network where it's a 24-hour operation because they are on different time zones. Why, our politics, even in the diaspora, then go by Samazi, right? And most people are not, they're not in it there. So, it's the voter. The Gambian voter is the one that has to change. And Muhamne, NB Enamla, and then only Yalla Sahdefane. I am not going to change the condition of the people who are not willing to change themselves. Then, you will always have the ruler that is a reflection of who you are in the preponderance. Not all of them. Obviously, not all of us are alike. Why ningen mel in your majority, non la nyinga hamne who will be presiding over your affairs will be like. Halifa Musna like a question in one of the meetings you guys organized in Atlanta. I was there.
Yeah.
Mune, I asked this question: what is the wage of sacrifice in Gambia? In that hall, I was there. Demba Balde was there. You were there. Nyom Jo Sambu and all of that. And I think Kebba was there and all of those people. What is the wage of sacrifice in Gambian politics? And it was a rhetorical question. The answer is zero because Nini recognizing sacrifice.
No, they don't.
No, they don't recognize sacrifice. They want fluff and somebody who's going to tell them, well, you are happy, Kirib Karab, Dekabida for living ni. Musa living is an opposition, he's a rebel, he's this and that. Or, Saul Badjie can be the best person why he has an opinion you don't like, and then you think he's Satan. You have to have room for everybody. So that's what I think 2026 has to be about. It's the voter. The ball is in our court. If we play the same game, this crew and Dusan, you want to deal with Henry Gomez and Nyomse Humbalo and people like Nyom Sidinja. Can you imagine? Sidinja is holding sway in your country.
Exactly.
This guy is a non-entity. Why he's there?
Yes,
He's
that is not the change. But
he's putting on a suit, going to London, and he's speaking for you.
Yeah.
I mean, he doesn't care about you. It's all about.
And if we are not careful,
they will hold sway.
These are the same people. They will have it their way. I can guarantee you that.
Musa, 20 years we've been dealing with this seeding guy type character. 20-something years.
Exactly.
I mean, for a country that has the best people, I mean, you open your them on LinkedIn, the quality of people we have, Musa. You have well educated, very experienced, patriotic. Why they are out of national life. The family, we've become a Sarah, billahi, and you have to deal with seeding guy, 20-something years.
Billahi.
So
you had Karamba. I'm sure that we got about maybe 13-14 minutes. We were out of here for. I mean, and I'm glad, because we were gonna actually cancel tonight's show. And I'm glad I didn't, because I'm like, no way in hell. We're gonna come here and we're gonna have a discussion of some sort. Now I'm really glad we're able to pull it off. But Saul, 2026, it's gonna happen fairly soon. And if you were to ask me, it is for the sitting guys and the Sehumbalos and for the Barrow to lose. Really. And if you ask me today, I can guarantee you, they will be re-elected. So something needs to be done, bold and different. If we're not careful, it will be the same old, same old. What say you? Looking at what happens, how can we?
Why that's okay. Kebba, I can go before.
Okay. So, Kebba, you want to come in? Same question. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. 2026, Kebba. Same question. What needs to be done? We saw what happened. We saw what we did in 2016. I believe that there are experiences that we learn from. What do we do now to get ready for 2026 so that we can bring about change?
Well, let me just draw a parallel between our Gambian situation and the Senegalese situation. In Gambia, we started a coalition effort prior to 2006. And from that coalition effort, NAT was born. We have NAT. And after we have NAT, during the process of creating the coalition, we come up with a memorandum of understanding. And that MOU is the same, is the project that Sonko and Duma is talking about. They have their own MOU, which is their project. Yeah, and then that's what they're going to implement. So our project was that MOU from 2006. And from 2006 to 2016, fast forward to 2016, it was that same MOU that was presented at Sadauda Karamba that hall, Sadauda Karamba Hall in Senegambia. So that MOU is our project. Our failure of 2016 is due to the fact that we didn't conclude the project. We didn't implement the project. The lack of implementation of that project is our failure. But what can we do in 2026? In 2026, I believe before we choose a leader, we have to sell that project to the Gambian people. The difference is the Senegalese people, they bought the project. They know the project, they accepted the project. So when you sell the project to the people and they understand it and they accept it, it won't be a problem to choose a leader. You can easily get a leader. That's why it was easy when Macky Sall stopped Sonko from being a candidate, for Sonko to get about 5 or 6 alternative candidates to come in. Mm-hmm. So if we get a project, take it to the Gambian people, and the Gambian people accept it, who is going to lead it is not going to be a problem. Any of the people that initiate that project and believe in that project can take that project to conclusion. So our failure is not the project itself. Our failure is by choosing a leadership that don't believe in the project. The other day, I was telling somebody that I doubt whether Barrow ever read the Memorandum of Understanding. I seriously doubt that. So Barrow don't have no clue what is the Memorandum of Understanding. So he don't have no investment in that project. He don't believe in the project. That's why he didn't implement the project. On the contrary, Barrow is going back to the people that we fought with for 22 years and bringing them back. And then instead of bringing the project and implementing our project, Barrow is fighting against that project by aligning himself with the very people we are fighting to implement this project. And that will be my conclusion.
So,
wow.
2026, something has to be. I just want to read what this Babukar Wad, and then you can take it from there. Said Musa Jeng, Barrow has no legitimacy to run the 2026 elections. These coming elections should an opportunity for real change and not just another battle between NPP versus UDP. Our foremost battle should be no Barrow participation in 2026 after 2 terms and a new constitution, electoral reforms with 50+1. No constitutional coup. Barrow and his allies in the National Assembly arrogantly ditched the new constitution process and thus wasted $116 million that could have been used for something else. Basically, what the guy is saying, I don't think there is any Gambian that should, disagree with that. The moment it becomes another NPP versus UDP kind of politics, and that's what Karamba is saying, that's when we delve into identity politics and all this BS. And we know how that, that movie will end up, just where we are right now. The Fabakari Tombos. People, you're going to have 19 other candidates who's going to put their hat in the ring, and at the end, either they will be, the Independent Electoral Commission will, Nakalenko Wahati, Dunjan jail, and then they will turn around and endorse Barrow, Uchineka, waiting there, if I go with you, you'll take care of me after you win. What say you 2026? What should we learn from the Senegalese experience in combination with what we learned in 2016? Sorry.
Yeah, this is a great way to conclude, Musa. I'm going to segue and take up from where Kebba Foon ended. First thing, we have to have somebody or go back and dust off that agenda and revisit the agenda and fine-tune the agenda. But quickly, the point that we should all be crying out for those of us who are out in the diaspora is, why are you, me, Musa, Karamba, and everybody watching not able to participate in the elections of our own country, where we invest, last I checked, over 700 million US dollars. And Musa, you and me and Kebba and Karamba and everybody watching would agree that what we have invested in that country in the last cycle that was reported by the central bank is over $1 billion US dollars. And we all know that because most of us would take money that is not going through the channels of these forex bureaus that would be captured by the central bank. So that is a number that we can always talk about. If you look at the population of our country and the amount of money we are pumping into that country from the diaspora, that should give us the leverage and the push to make sure that this constitution, like this young man, this guy Babukar Wara is saying, is passed. That should be what we should be fighting for. That you, me, and everybody else should be able to not only vote, our children qualify to vote because the constitution says so, the old one, but more so this new constitution that's coming up should give us the opportunity. So now is the time that this constitution is passed. And yes, I agree with Babukar. Adama Barrow, by all indications now, should actually do at the tail end what Macky Sall did, even though I think there was some kind of game in it of saying, I am not going to participate in the elections. The NPP will select a candidate and this candidate will run, but I'm going to oversee the elections and make sure we have a free and fair elections in which whoever wins becomes the next president of the country. Do I think that Adama Barrow would actually do that, Musa Jeng? I don't think so, because not only Adama Barrow is actually a prisoner in that state house, whether we know it or not. Now he has created a situation for himself, where the people, just like Macky Sall did, they were telling him, "You're doing the right thing. Yai President bi Musa, yo yafi mun everything. Tahawal bula kenna nanga wax guy." Just what he was doing to Madi Jabate. That where were you? Where was these things that are nonsensical, Musa? Lolu mo ñu nekk di delloo gannaaw. Adama Barrow did not read this manifesto, and I'm afraid I agree with Brother Kebba that if he had read it, he would have taken, if he was also genuine, that the way to go as a leader of this country is to make sure that we not only pass the constitution, but also all the reforms that we put in place after our political leader was put in jail, after so many people were killed, Musa, that we should be able to say Solo Sandeng will not die in vain, that the victims who are actually suffering for 7 years, that we will make sure that those victims' death was not in vain, just like Karamba said, the price of sacrifice for the country. What was it? I think we made some mistakes. We should all take ownership of our mistakes, but we can also take the opportunity, just like COVID, Musa Jeng. It's going to be COVID-19 ñëwee. I'm going to waxoon naa lii su mel clip ne 100 years ago nit ñi dañ doon foog ne ay dooma ñoom ñoo create COVID because it was out in the air. Nobody knew what it was. Yaya Jammeh su fi nekkoon dafa dem di rey nit ñi màggeti ne leen ay dooma ngeen yéen a tax nit ñi nekk di dee fii. But we have moved on as a continent. We have moved on as we should move on as the world has. We must put ourselves in the position of preparing our youth folk. As I conclude, Musa, the youth folk are the vanguards. They are the golden opportunity that God has given the continent of Africa. The United States population is dwindling because the growth rate, the birth rate is not as robust as it was. You see Japan struggling. Even China has to rethink their one-child policy. We have been gifted with an opportunity. We cannot allow our young people to take flight and move out of the country, whether it's intentional or not. We need to create that opportunity of giving them hope, just like PASTEF has done. Now, the fight and the most important struggle that is coming for PASTEF is how do they manage the expectation of these young people? We have to take that and add that to the cake, the icing of the cake of what our project is going to be for 2026 to make sure Adama Barrow does not participate, but that we also participate in the elections. And we stay on top of everything, like Kebba Alum Don Wahnono. We will never relent and continue to make sure that we implement the strategies and the plans that we want for better Gambia.
Karamba, there is this, as I listen to you, and of course, you know that we've been on this journey for a long time.
Yes.
And looking at Senegal, we see an Usman Sonko. We also see this so-called project. For me, it's a combination of the two. But as I listen to you, we have a Karamba Touray. I mean, an individual who's been in politics for a long time, at least I know, who is very, when he speaks, even people that disagree will listen and they'll say, like UDP, but Karamba Mom, definitely, I like the way he put things across. You speak, I always say to myself, Sumamonona Lakapol Sose Olof, mi Karamba Mun, and I'm not just talking about, you know, Kumuna Nyo, the label, Tibetan language, Koku Degana language. So sometimes people are saying we need something also like a Karamba Touray that can connect and win the hearts and minds and also be able to articulate, just like Nyom Usman Sonko, they are able to do, these complex issues about debt, these complex issues about inflation, to the person, Keneka Balangar, to the person, Kuneka Tunia Taba, in a language that that person understands, something different. Why wouldn't we have something like a Karamba Touray, really? That people can really be there, okay, he sounds and look different. In the absence of that, I think for me, 2026, it will be the same old, same old. Why wouldn't a Karamba Touray look into that? I know that you don't want to run for office. I heard you say that again and again, that you don't even want to run, you don't even want to be part of a government. But if we do that, then we're left with the sitting guys, the people that will hijack the process. And in the end, we're back to square one. Why wouldn't a Karamba Touray really look into that? Because that's where the problem is. We have to have the right person, and yes, the messenger, and then the right message.
Okay. It's a fair question. And it comes back to what I said earlier, that the 2026 has to be about the voter and the decisions the voter make. Now, what you just mentioned, the voter has to have a message, and then he has to get the message from somebody that he has confidence in, and from somebody that is articulating it in a manner that is relatable to them. We have that problem in all parties. You know, all parties have, especially speaking from the party that I belong to, I believe we have a very deep bench of people that have far more capable than me, people that have a lot more experience than me, people that have a lot more ideas than I do. It's a question of how do each of us play our role. Your role, Musa, is to analyze the situation and then create a forum where I can come, Saul can come, Kebba can come. We all don't agree on everything. You send Sako panelists, you don't agree on all of that. Samba is more liberal than you are, and then you don't agree on a lot of different things. But you are able to have a discussion that creates a consensus. The bottom line issues, we are not all that far apart. Why swing politics be look sonal Musa is what we've been discussing all day. It's what Pastef has been able to break through, which is how do you conceive and then have a ground game that allows people to understand what your concepts are, and then you get a buy-in from them. So the first thing you have to do is to get the people's attention on the issues. This is the biggest barrier we have, is that the attention grabbing, because standing up and then talking in a political rally is not a discussion. You are throwing red meat to your own people. Because it's not the persuadable that you want. No, you can say, well, you are throwing them red meat, but in the process, are you really connecting with the other person who is not a card-carrying member of your party, who maybe has a different idea, who maybe doesn't agree with you on all of the things? Though I'm Ben political party, you will agree with them. For example, I can tell you, when it comes to one of the things I am interested in, which is devolution of power, my position is not very far from Doi. I have read what Doi wants to do, and I think basically we all want to devolve power to the village level. That's what they want to do. That's what I want to do too. Man yeti priority la am in UDP. Moi agriculture and food security, devolution of power, and then also pro-business economic policies. Because I'm not a communist. I believe in building the private sector so that they create jobs. Understand? So in those are the 3 areas that I participate. Even in our manifesto, the input that I gave was in those 3 areas. Understand? And my role, I am a facilitator. I believe that if our team wins and I'm on the outside, for example, we are working. Our agriculture policy says we want to do the Maputo Declaration, which is 10% of the national budget will be invested in agriculture and rural development. So Mansuma role would be to just pack up small dobas, go and then be sort of like the lobbyists for it outside of government. We cannot all be in the government bureaucracy. So because we can make sure that when they are putting the budget together, they are heading into the 10%. And once it is put together, the ministry is organized so that they can execute 10% rather than taking all this agriculture money. Because the current Ministry of Agriculture bureaucracy, they are experts in draining project funds, and then they've got track and meetings and buying vehicles and then tapale can do get nothing. So if somebody like me is not on the outside, our UDP people inherit the same Ministry of Agriculture. You gotta push for them to reform. You get all the thieves out, bring independent experts, bring them in, and then tell them, look, rice self-sufficiency 5 years. Show me, and this is the plan you are going to do, and then have the president every 2 months with rain boots, counting the number of hectares under cultivation. Have timeline. So my role to answer your question is to fight as hard as I can to get my side elected, and then to be on the outside to make sure that they do what I believe in terms of those priorities. And then there are all people who have other priority areas. We have people who are interested in IT, and it doesn't only have to be UD.
Yeah, but all that sound fine and dandy. But in we're confronted with a problem. Before you can do all that, you have to be elected.
Yes.
I mean, and I think that is the heavy lifting that has that has always been a problem.
Yes.
I mean, it has been elusive for the past several years. Getting elected. So I'm just saying, I mean, unless we have a Usman Sonko type, and again, I'm not naive.
No, I think a good candidate, yes. Usman Sonko at this point is the template.
Exactly that.
Okay. Now we can get a good candidate. And not only my party, all the parties.
All the parties, no doubt.
Yeah, all the parties can get a good candidate because they have a deep bench, like I said.
Right.
And the issue, and I think Pa Samba mentioned this when he came in. It is not typical. Sometimes when the euphoria is going, right now we are all into the young people because Usman is young, Joma is young, and they are vigorous. Right. But there are not so young people in PASTEF too. You understand?
Oh,
yeah, they are. So the issue is what Lukojwa. It is the person's integrity before they a good leader has to be patriotism, and Musa, we are not teaching patriotism in our schools. And that's why part of our problem is that you can get the Gambian Munna Hartanki to get ahead himself, but try to get a group dynamic and have people work in a team, and most of the time it all falls apart because kuchineka dafa ngiro ngaro, and then it's all about nakalai rae racha kusumakana. And patriotism kills that. If you see a lot of people that are dedicated to country, they are selfless people. Then they nangu chono, then they nangu nyaka system alal, freedom and everything. We don't have a lot of that injected in our politics. That's why it's very easy for somebody put on a half-time money jogging as a party. Or Kila don't criticize your film nekani, you are the best thing, DP, sliced bread. And they have no shame because to them it's just like a transaction. Oh, I'm coming back. I'm doing all of that. So it's us, the people. We all have to change, Musa.
Yeah.
Our leaders have to change. At the individual level, soon orientation has to change. Limala nyan moine platform binga am. Let us make this about the voter and why it is important for them to relate to their own faith. You wanna decide accordingly. And that is a very, very difficult thing to do because could talk some guy in a pickup truck and that how do you reach that person, Musa? You are a public communicator. How do you reach that person? Kimala wahnyamina kunga hamne esa mbaifal dem na bekimo or na if he elected Esa president. I'm not even saying vote for our candidate. Why if you voted for Esa has all his own money. He's not trying to build I'm not taham. He's not hungry and all of that. To do his part. So we're gonna gomulo Usainu Dabo, gomulo Halifa, gomulo Mama Kande. Give SI a chance. Because definitely because I have no connection in Yamina other than wanting to serve you. Why the fuck I'm out for 5 votes, huh? They are not going to vote for it. That's the problem we have. No, they are not going to do that. So it's the voter. So you in communication and all of us, a lot of times, all jokes aside, we cannot give up on the country. If you do, like you said, you're going to have the Sirinjai crowd, Henry Gomez, Save Humbalo, people like that. And even some of the traitors from my own party. Because at that time, well, as soon as we did that, we all flew back and we went to Usainu UDP government knew. Because all they wanted to do was they want the guy as if he ran the whole country. Give me a job. Give me this, give me that. This is a coalition government. I cannot hire you. I'm not the public service commission. And then they use that as politics. Oh, that's why I'm leaving. So if you have people like that, the politics is dirty. And to move away from that is very, 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 very hard to do because it comes down to the individual. You also ne luma defal Gambia suma boparek mota ma ko def. They can be jaralula daradi nothing. Jaralula nothing.
Yeah, but Karamba, the reality too is people are seeing that at the end of the day. Like I said, we've been on this 20-year struggle. Yeah. When everything is said and done, tyranny was gone. We also in a democracy. And what we are witnessing, no hamne, affaire bi jaralulen sax lift a finger.
Yeah.
Lift a finger lalawa.
Yeah.
Now they are the ones. Call it whatever you want to call it.
They are right in the gravy train. Yeah.
Running the show, making the decisions, negative. I mean, and you're like, what the hell?
Yeah.
What was I doing all this for?
Yeah.
Less in fairness, I'm not even looking for one time position you make, but at least the very change that we are fighting for. But the change is not there. Man nguru masi, nije nguru mo some other people.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what the hell?
Yeah.
I mean,
it hurts. It does hurt. So we all have to do. And then
it keeps you thinking that, you know what? Maybe what the hell? Let me join the show as well.
Yeah. And that's what we all have to change, and we have to. Even the nature of leadership has to evolve and change for the better. Because Sunko Defut, we are going to be running in circles, and then come ni go herek yalla do de tan nit njiti I need except for the way the majority is. So the majority has to change. That's why Yahya Jammeh stuck around for 20 years. I mean, can you imagine? He did that because we were not. The force that was attacking him to change, it was in the minority. Most people were just content, man defu madara so mo nguria lack of attack. And then some people were actually more cynical than that. Nyimo chaw ñu sen affaire neexuma so bayal ma mu chaw le mu rey le mu
they break the laws.
Of course.
Exactly.
Suma defu de dara, and then this Musa Jeng is a pesky guy. Look jot moko indil bopa. That's the attitude of some people. I remember when we used to do demonstrations, we would pass them, but we used to try to shame some of our people there. They will, Yahya Jammeh will do a reception in a fancy hotel, New Solsen, Kosi, and then we used to call them, rare kati. Why in the end, some of them had a little bit of shame. They were going through the back door. Why following? And they just couldn't be bothered. Because we are in America here, then what is why we are trying to protest this
wasting our time.
But I am glad that we fought that fight, and we have to continue that. Reu denko buga Musa.
Absolutely. So final words from you and Saul, so that we can get out of here. And Sumawaji soon to Dafe. I always like to Nico a little bit. Senegalese society is different from Gambia. So their template is not necessarily going to be compatible with ours. I don't know about that. I mean, we are not the same, but there's nothing wrong with looking at what they have done and see how we can tailor-made it to our situation. That's simple for you. So Kebba, final comments.
Well, final comment be Karamba make it easy for me. He ran down the struggle and what we did. So fi mu nekk nii Karamba li ma wax mooy ñun miñ doon ooyee ñu ñàkk a fayda yi bi ñoo dem di demonstrate. So ñun ñu ñàkk a fayda yi, let's come back together and go back to the drawing board. That's my conclusion.
Going back to the drawing board, Kebba, I have absolutely no doubt about that. But I also want to caution, what we were confronted with in 2006, that we came together, it cannot be the same playbook for the situation that we are in today. Yes, there is a need to come together to bring change in 2026. But let us not get carried away that what worked in 2016 is the same playbook that can be utilized. We can agree to disagree. We can brainstorm and trying to find a way that at least we can influence change. So Saul, last statement from you.
Well, I think there's change is coming, but whether we're gonna grasp and take advantage of that change that has been put on our peninsula in the sub-region there is another thing. Manda also believe Musa. We can start now as we go towards 2026, but I think the sub-region needs to pivot quickly to become a unified entity that is going to carry one currency, also create a central system for maintaining. We will not allow the West, because that is the way they've been able to circumvent our systems, that they can negotiate with Senegal on different terms and come to Nigeria and negotiate on different terms. But if we have that drive from the ECOWAS, the real ECOWAS that I think we should have, it'll help us mitigate these situations. The problem we want to solve right now is our youth folk, Musa. How do we get our youth folk to be informed? Because our school systems are not ready. The school is an avenue where we can sensitize our young people such that they can learn from what is happening around the world and within their sub-region, and be able to go home and tell their parents that this is where the world is. Like you said, Musa, we're not going to be able to fight the fight that we did before using the same tools and the same system. It's not going to happen. And again, we've already learned the lessons because we made sure that we won and we went to sleep. We cannot do that anymore. But one of the things that I think we should begin to converse, to discuss is using these platforms and sensitizing our people that if Senegal is able to move in a direction that is the envy of our sub-region, we should be able to. Why? Because not only do we have 2 million people in our country, but we also have some advantages where we don't have the political powerhouses such as the Murids and these entrenched wealthy people who have been pushing Macky Sall to do the opposite. We can change our country by making sure we pass the constitution, just table the constitution the way it is. And if we have a new parliament and we want to change that, then we can do that in the long run. But we make sure that we implement, that we force Adama Barrow to begin to implement the changes that we wanted. The TRRC constitution, commissions, what do you call it again? The decisions and the recommendations that they made, that Adama Barrow must begin to be seen to implement those. We have a fee that we have to pay, Musa, of 20 million pounds because of a legal case that has been ruled in our country. We cannot do this. That if we have that are given to the government to use in a project, that we should be able to stand up and tell the government that it must do right. But I also want to conclude with this, Musa. The Gambian Bar Association must begin to stand up. If they don't want to do that, then we cannot call them the Gambian Bar Association. They must be able to point fingers at Adama Barrow for the things that he's doing wrong. That are women folk who are the backbone of our economy. We cannot be going out and persecuting them and arresting them. In every country in Africa, this happens. Now, you can say, Musa, can say, well, if it's happening in Nigeria, should we accept it? That we need to clear our streets. Of course we do, but we need to communicate with our people and hand that power to the local governments, decentralize and tell the local governments, We will help you if you need support. But here's a piece of plot that we need to temporarily place these women to have sales of their common goods that they sell. Musa, man Mayo ak Kebba, ñun ñëpp ñu fi nekk Karamba. Every one of us can attest to the fact that at some point in time, suñ waajur they were doing hawking. They were selling goods on the streets to be able to either supplement the income that our parents, our fathers are putting on the table, or ñu dimbali ñu suñu dimbali seen husbands ñu jëndal ñu uniform ñu dem school. Man daal foofu laa nekk. That is how I benefited. Tough Africa Global wax na ko foofu la benefité nañ wax Adama Barrow mu bàyyi maire yi ak jigéen yi ñu jaay the goods. Let them give him an alternative before we start to enforce the law, and let him go to the courts. Now Adama Barrow relinquish the power and give it to the other two branches, so go to venue a balanced playing field. Jajefati.
So Karamba, final word. You guys have been terrific. And Karamba told me he was only going to be on for 20, 30 minutes. He ended up staying
No,
the
you know,
entire show. So
no,
I definitely,
seeing you, Kebba and Saul, and our
yeah,
old friend Pasamba on a conference call again brought back a lot of memories. So
exactly.
I think that perked me up, and then I was able to reschedule whatever I had in line. Why? Jerejef
Right.
Musa, and continue to do this good job that you are doing, which is public education. Buko help. You bring people in, and then you know, and I see that recent of late the government officials are also coming. It's good for them to come and talk to you, and then answer the hard questions, and let us have a conversation on the issues that affect all of us, and then let us all understand that this is our country. Nobody's going to come fix all of these problems for us. Bepare su affaire yi boné bepare ñun ñëpp ñu gédda ñu bàyyi ko foofu noonu mbon bi dafa gën a yokku rek, and then amuñ fenn fuñ dem. I mean, we will all have to go back to our own home there, and we want it to be a better place. And 2026, we need to bring change, and we need to bring fundamental change. We need to have a rule of law society. Before we can do better, and we are not going to do the coming over here. Change can only come through electoral success. So electoral success can only come through effective communication, and then trying to convince people. Politics is a game of persuasion. Disagreement is healthy. It's good. But when I disagree with you, it doesn't mean that I should have any kind of malice behind it. In the same direction. Why? Let's talk, and let's talk with sincerity, and let us all teach ourselves how to be more patriotic. Because if you are patriotic, you can survive your differences. If you are not patriotic, you will all retreat. We will all retreat into our own little corners, and then just be fighting a fratricidal war in which there are no winners. Because they can be the first stagnate, you know, the people that are in charge are not capable. Why? Their incompetence has consequences even on the capable people who are trying to make it there.
Absolutely.
You know, and all of us are affected. So more than water here, we need to engage them, the government. If we need to engage them, we need to fight them. If we need to fight them, we certainly need to change them by 2026, Musa.
Exactly. Yeah. But again, Karamba, definitely, I definitely thank you guys, and happy Easter Sunday to our Christian brothers. And part of the, if you look at the something streaming there, it's for the people, by the people. We're having a town hall meeting during the July 4th celebration. Talib Bensouda, the Lord Mayor of Kanifing, will be here to meet diaspora, have an interactive meeting with Gambians here in Atlanta and people that are coming from outside. I'm hoping that the Karamba Touray of this world will join us. This is important, really. I mean, it's part of building the bridge between the diaspora and these upcoming politicians in the Gambia. I mean, this July 4th is going to be Talib. We're looking to bring in some other young politicians, the young Dabos of this world. I mean, and even the the NPP upcoming politicians as well. Because we have to talk, not just among ourselves, but even people that we disagree with. That is the only way that we can bring about change. So any of you guys that are listening, get your tickets ready, head on to Atlanta. This July 4th is going to be big. It's going to be huge. And just like we did, going all the way back, Kebba, if you remember, Mid the Diaspora Summit, when the politicians came, to Atlanta, when Sadauda Karamba came here to launch his book, when Halifa Saleh came to launch his book. I mean, that's what we are known for. We try to do the big things that are different. And this coming year, this coming July 4th, we are also going to be rolling out the carpet, the red carpet, for the Lord Mayor of Kanifing. All right, guys, thanks again. We will be
Thank
back
you, Musa.
no doubt.
Thank you, Kebba and Saul.
Thank you very
All
much.
right, Karamba.
All right.
Thank you,
All right,
Karamba.
thank you.
Guys,
Good talking to you.
Saul.
Guys.
All right,
Yes.
jërëjëf.
Bye, Kebba.